is how I die. I wonder what my obituary will call me. Diarrhea Jones? Or my birth name?
Hello, and welcome to the Kongversation. I'm Hyle Russell.
And I'm Jeff Onan.
You had to think about it, Jeff. I could like hear you.
Sometimes you have you'll specifically introduce me, and then I speak. But you just went dead there, and I was like, wait, dead. I have to fill the dead. So I am Jeff Onan, and I don't really have to think hard about that. I'm confidently Jeff Onan.
Filling the dead is the plight of the necrophiliac, by the way.
It is, if you wanted to make a gross joke, which you did.
Speaking of gross jokes, this is the episode where we find out the real name of the quote-unquote ape raper. But we're saving that reveal for the end of the episode. This is for your eyes only, people, or ears, I guess. We've got to string you along for the entire episode to get this huge reveal, build up to it, because it's February sweeps, after all, Jeff, and we got to worry about the ratings. The ratings for our podcast with all of our various sponsors and advertisers. They want the big numbers to know that all of the thousands of dollars they spend advertising here on the Kongversation, it's worth it. That we're actually bringing in the earballs. And
the Microsoft, who's all paying us these days?
Everybody.
Microsoft, Angry Orchard, a little this, little that.
You know who's not paying us is YouTube.
The one who was actually paying
right.
us.
Yeah. Oh, well, okay. Anyway. But yeah, it's been a big unsolved mystery of the Kongversation for more than 6 seasons now. Who is this madman? What is this madman's real name who shouts at us at the top of every episode? And, because I had to refer to him as a quite unfortunate moniker that, I realized like back in 2013, it was a different era. We were all disco dancing. We were all doing the hula hoops. And, maybe such a moniker was less controversial than it is now. But in 2019, you can't really go around calling this guy by the name we were calling him. So it's a good thing we're learning his real name now.
If it had been me, I would have just moved the space in the sentence, in the 2-word phrase, move the space over one letter, and his name becomes Aper, which means nothing at all.
Nothing at all. No.
I actually, this is the first I've realized that Ape Raper is a palindrome, which is kind of fun. Don't think too hard about it.
Wait, I'm not. I'm just going to take that at face value that actually works. Anyway, so it's been an unsolved mystery of the Kongversation. Who is this guy? Does he have a real name? And so it got me thinking, knowing that this reveal was coming this episode, about the unsolved mysteries of the Donkey Kong universe. I have been having a U-tussle with YouTube as of late, as I just alluded to, but if it wasn't for that, I would feel comfortable playing the infamous Unsolved Mysteries theme song right now. The really creepy theme that people who were little kids in the early 90s were terrified of whenever their parents would watch Unsolved Mysteries on CBS. I believe it was CBS. The Robert Stack hosted true crime show. It'd be true crime, but sometimes they would throw in weird shit about like flying saucers and like, Sasquatch and stuff. But it was mostly true crime. And
what makes that not true crime? I don't.
Well, I mean,
see the difference.
I don't know if Sasquatch has ever committed any crime other than being wildlife.
They don't have social security numbers.
Oh, well.
They don't have green cards. They have nothing.
Oh, well, anyway, I was going to play that theme song because, Unsolved Mysteries, Robert Stack, only 90s kids will understand this. But I don't want to incur the wrath of the YouTube algorithm any more than I have by putting my own podcast up on my own YouTube channel. So I thought maybe we could do an a cappella version of it, Jeff. If you'll do it with me here, just get us in the mood.
Yeah. Okay. Sure. All right. Are you gonna count us down? What's
No,
the
we'll
scenario?
just launch into it whenever. Okay.
Okay. Life is like a hurricane here in Duck. What is it? What?
That sounds about right. No, I think we set the mood. Mood is set.
Can I just say real quick? You know, when you say only '90s kids will remember, you and I are very different '90s kids in terms of the age of what we are. And so I gotta tell you, I never heard this theme song in my life before this episode. Now I get it because we just sang it, so I heard it.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah. Because I was born in the '80s, but you know, I came of age in the '90s. Therefore, I'm a '90s kid. I have no real cultural remembrance of the '80s except seeing '80s movies in the '90s, and I was like, oh, I guess I was alive then. Yeah, but.
Well, you know, when I talk about being a '90s kid, I'm talking about like, you know, my favorite episode of SpongeBob SquarePants.
And see, that's late '90s, which I consider to be 2000s. So like for me, like the cutoff of '90s, let's just say, would be like. Not 99 barely counts as the 90s. It would be like 98 is like the end of 90s culture for me.
Okay.
99 is when everybody was like, "Ooh, new millennium," even though the new millennium wouldn't start for 2 years, but you know what I mean. But everybody was like moving on to like their boy bands with the frosted tips and their SpongeBob's and they.
I was born in '93, so I did get a taste. I got a little taste.
Just like I was born in '83, so I got a taste of the '80s.
And you didn't like it.
But you know, I watched the Back to the Future trilogy. I played Grand Theft Auto, Vice City. I think I've got the gist of the decade.
I have to tell you, the early '90s, and maybe this is only true for people who had siblings that were born in the '80s, which is what I had. My older brother was born in '86. My older sister was born in like fucking '79 or something. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is, as a kid born in the early '90s, all of the culture I experienced in my early childhood was just holdovers from the '80s.
Right.
It's just reruns and replays. Everyone's still talking about the Ninja Turtles and Back to the Future, and that was it. And it wasn't really until the later '90s where we had our own '90s culture going. For me, as a 4-year-old child.
Yeah, I guess like in the early to mid '90s, it was still heavily reliant on '80s culture, and I think like Power Rangers supplanted Ninja Turtles finally.
Yeah, that's true. I actually tweeted that this week that as a child I wrote a report for school on what I wanted to be when I grew up in like kindergarten. You know, so it's not like a real report. And I was two things. I was torn between whether I wanted to be a pirate or a Power Ranger. And so hashtag be more Power Ranger. Yeah, at least one of those two dreams is half coming true.
I'm surprised there's never been a Power Rangers season based on piracy, like where the Power Rangers, like their Zords are like pirate ships. Maybe there has been. I don't know, but I don't think there has been.
There's been enough seasons. There's been so many seasons.
Yeah, and they like eventually like
nobody actually knows.
They started having a theme. I think it was right around the time of Power Rangers Turbo, if my Wikipedia research holds true.
Well, like right away they started out with like dinosaurs, but then the very next one they were like jungle animals.
They were like okay, so it was like they started the first season of Power Rangers dinosaurs, which you know they morphed into like dinosaurs with dinosaur helmets, and they had dinosaur Zords. But then the second season they still had the dinosaur powers, but then they had like mythical beast for Zords, and then they had like shoguns or ninjas or something as Zords, and then they switched to Zeo powers, which is nothing, and then they decided to become race car drivers, and then it really started to become themed. Like, we're race car drivers, now we're astronauts, now we're police officers, now we're ninjas again, stuff like that.
There's actually no way to know if they did or did not do that, because nobody's still paying attention enough.
I'm sure there are Power Rangers fans who are furious with you right now because they are absolutely watching every season. But
out of the 12 or so that pay for the privilege to listen to this live, there's that one in the middle of the Venn diagram between Power Rangers and Kongversation subscribers.
Absolutely.
That one little guy.
There are Power Rangers diehards, Saban shared universe diehards who definitely are DK Viners. So, but anyway, we're not going to be talking about power. This is an Oops All Tangents Power Rangers, which I assume is going to come eventually.
Out of time.
That's going to come eventually. Nevertheless, Unsolved Mysteries, Jeff. We will be talking about mysteries of the Donkey Kong universe that are related to plots, unresolved cliffhangers, weird Easter eggs, or other in-game oddities. And we'll be talking about the totality of the DKU here, Jeff. So this includes the classics, but it also has recent releases as well, like Yooka-Laylee, and yes, Sea of Thieves, even though, yes, I know it's not technically DKU yet, even though Black Eye appears in this spin-off material. I know it doesn't count yet.
Black Eye, he's name-dropped in the game, among other things, but he'll be in the game. He'll be in the game.
He'll be in the game. TT will be in the game. Leaky will be in the game.
Shut up!
So we're going to be talking about Sea of Thieves on this episode as well. But I realize that's not really fair to talk about Yooka and Sea of Thieves on a episode about unresolved mysteries, because they haven't had a chance to resolve them yet, especially Sea of Thieves, which is this ongoing shared world narrative, you know. But fuck it, it's content, and we gotta fill content, Jeff. So we're gonna be talking about.
But fuck it.
I mean, it's a good thing DK Vine doesn't engage in listicles, because we would be so tapped out. We would really be like, it's amazing I'm able to stretch these Facebook series that I do on our Facebook page out as much as I do. Like, for the last 5+ years, I've had a post every Saturday night about the concept of spaciness, and I've never missed one Saturday.
Yeah, that's like me with the Little Caesars Dollar Breadstick Tuesdays.
You never miss it.
They don't do it anymore.
You still show up for it, though.
I still show up to check, just to see.
You're keeping the tradition alive, whether they like it or not, and I respect that, Jeff.
I walk in, hey, what can I get for you? Hi, excuse me, what do your breadsticks cost today? Oh, $1.78? All right, never mind.
Well, you know, maybe you'll get some breadsticks by the end of this. No promises, but since you did deliver me a pizza on New Year's Eve, I'm sure you could procure some.
I hope that our advertisers includes Little Caesars. That'd be a great, what do you call it, sponsor. That'd be a great sponsor for the Kongversation, this Little Caesars pizza.
Yeah, considering how much I talked about how pizza causes irritable bowel syndrome in me, then I don't think they would pony up to the table.
Well, Hyle, I don't know about you, but I'm hot and ready to discuss some unsolved mysteries. See what I did there?
Yeah, and this is all leading up to the end of the episode, the grand reveal of the Ape Raper's true name. We won't have to call him that anymore. Turning the page here on the Kongversation. It's a new day, a new era. But first, speaking of sponsors and shilling and just shamelessness, I gotta get to some due diligence, Jeff. I gotta do it. I'm sorry. It has to be done. Support DK Vine on Patreon, dkvine.com/Patreon. Especially now with YouTube and me having a bit of a brawl, having a bit of a melee, having a bit of an ultimate, and that doesn't work. So we're going at it, and they're punching me, and I'm getting beaten in the kidneys, and blood is pooling out. But honestly, your support on Patreon means the world, because it allows DK Vine to continue to run, and while I try to get income up and running again. We've got stickers, Jeff. We've got the new Patreon stickers. Just came in. 2019 Series 4 We got K Crazy Croco. We've got Marth's9 the Goldfish. We've got Crystal, spelled with a C and an I. And we've got a special sticker acknowledging our 20th anniversary in August. So everybody who supports us on Patreon for as little as $1 a month gets these stickers mailed to them. Why wouldn't you? That's ridiculous. That we're losing money on this, Jeff. I'm crazy giving these away for what I'm giving them away at. But support us on Patreon. You'll get those. And if you look at the page, if you go up in the tiers, you get more shit shoveled at you. You can have live conversation listening parties with yourself and us as you listen to every episode live. You can get bumper stickers for DK Vine. You can even get a custom DK Vine forum avatar. And speaking of which, there's never been a better time to join the DK Vine forum. Our moderators are doing a terrific job of engaging the forum with fun activities. Right now, they're having an Amiibo Fantasy Football League. I realize that doesn't make much sense and that's convoluted, but it makes sense if you go to the forum and check it out. You could win a free copy of Conker's Pocket Tales, Jeff, which is what I think of when I think of Amiibo. And then don't forget, DK Vine's on Facebook and Twitter and Tumblr even. DKVine.com/Facebook or /Twitter or /Tumblr. We're there. I run the Facebook and the Twitter accounts, and they're updated daily. And if you like Donkey Kong, if you like Banjo, if you like Conker, if you like Yooka-Laylee, if you like Sea of Thieves, if you like stuff that's similar to that stuff, you'll be happy to subscribe and follow us. Whatever you have to do to get it in your feed, do it, and it'll be done. Daily updates. I'm dead serious about this, Jeff. I update daily. I've been updating the DK Vine Facebook page every single day since 2013, I believe. So very dedicated about that.
Since we had discos, you guys.
Yeah.
Discos
and hula hoops.
Comprehend that on your brain a little.
Right.
We had the hoop with the stick thing. You had to hold the stick and do there was a hoop. That's how long.
Most people
Daily
don't remember.
updates.
That's what the Nintendo Wii was. It's so long ago that people forget, right. But that was what the Nintendo Wii was. Yeah, so check us out on social media. Check us out on YouTube, I guess. I'm so broken.
You don't have to.
I'm so broken, Jeff.
You don't have to plug YouTube because if you don't, what are they going to do about it? They're losing so much views.
They are.
By not supporting DK Vine.
But here's the thing, Jeff.
Tens of likes. Tens of likes.
I'm dedicated to our audience on YouTube. I don't want to leave them out in the lurch because he's my least favorite Addams Family character. So
if DK Vine doesn't support YouTube, then what are the kids? They might end up down a rabbit hole of anti-vaxxing and friggin' conspiracy theory. If they don't watch DK Vine on YouTube, they might end up believing the Earth is flat. We don't know.
I mean, who could forget that classic video I did where I vaccinated Baby Donkey Kong on top of a spherical globe? I mean, that was probably, I think, the highlight of our YouTube
Donkey
channel.
Kong fan owns flat earthers hard with logic.
Anyway, and now Baby Donkey Kong does not have the measles, so you're welcome.
That does explain his autism. I could really go for some breadsticks right now, but only if they cost $1.
It's not even Tuesday when we're recording this, so...
Yeah, but they could listen on it. People listen to this on Tuesdays. Sometimes.
There's a 1 in 7 chance.
All right. Is your diligence done?
I still got some diligence to get to. Don't forget.
Okay.
Don't forget, you can call the DK Vine hotline at 1-202-630-VINE. That's 8463. Otherwise, if you want to get your thoughts on the conversation, we play them, we listen to them, we air them. So why wouldn't you do it? It's so simple. All you need is a phone.
There's a running theme. Why not?
Why not? I mean,
why not?
Are you this lazy?
Why not?
Come on. Oh,
Just do it, please. Please.
Help us. By the way, help us. You need to help us. So I've shown you how easy things are. Now you got to do us a favor. Help us get Nintendo President Shuntaro Furukawa on the Kongversation podcast for the big spotlight episode for Mario Golf Game Boy Color this October. I've not seen much social media groundswell of support for this yet, and I'm getting a little frustrated. We're 3 episodes into the season 7, and people are not going to bat for us for this, or going up the tee box for us for this. Shuntaro Furukawa, the current Nintendo president, he speaks English, and he's a big fan of RPG golf. So naturally, I'm thinking the 20th anniversary of Mario Golf for Game Boy Color is coming up. This October will be the 20th anniversary of its release in the US. So we're gonna do a spotlight episode. Why not get the president of Nintendo to be my co-host for it? It makes so much sense, but we need your help to make it happen. We gave up getting Fabio on the show, but now we're trying to get Shuntaro Furukawa on the podcast. Please, people, please. I can't do it. I can't do it by my lonesome.
I don't want to distract from that mission, but you ought to try and get Doug Bowser on to discuss villains in the DKU. All of Doug Bowser's favorite villains, like Whizpig, Evil Acorn.
Naturally, yeah. Well, we'll talk a little bit about Doug Bowser in that situation in just a beat here. I would like to say, since this episode is about unsolved mysteries, nobody has found the missing episode of the Kongversation Season 6 yet. And just as a reminder, the first person to put together the clues and find this missing episode, it is a full-length episode of the Kongversation that is recorded, that is complete, that is an actual episode, but it's hidden. And it's missing, essentially. You've got to find it. The first person to do so and at us with the proof on Twitter gets an autographed copy of the Sea of Thieves comic book, issue number 1, autographed by the author. Come on, people. Come on. I can't believe nobody's found it yet. I thought this audience was comprised of a bunch of amateur detectives, which is why we were all fans of Unsolved Mysteries in the early 90s. We liked solving true crime, and I don't know why you're not putting your analytical skills to use for this. It's a perfectly acceptable mystery to solve, and nobody's really trying. The lack of enthusiasm for solving this mystery and the lack of enthusiasm for helping us getting Nintendo President Shuntaro Furukawa on the podcast for the big spotlight episode of Mario Golf Game Boy Color this October breaks my heart, Jeff. I really don't even know where our audience stands right now with me.
It's a perfectly acceptable mystery to solve. The mystery is not the problem. Audience, it's you. Come on.
Hashtag bring back the spiders, of course. And don't forget to check out Golden Sands blog post. Jeff Onan's own Sea of Thieves blog, where he takes the news of Sea of Thieves and he condenses it for you.
And I blog about it.
So I lead a go-go lifestyle with the discotheques and the hula hoops, as I've already said. I can't keep up with all of the news for Sea of Thieves because since I run DK Vine, I've got to kind of juggle many balls in the air, and the Sea of Thieves is basically like its own news ecosystem unto itself. I can't. It's hard to keep up with just that, and I couldn't do it without Golden Sands blog post, Jeff. So thank you.
So it's on medium.com/golden-sands-blog post. Or you can follow it on Twitter, which is just Twitter at Golden Sands Blog, without the word post.
That's really confusing.
Yeah. There you go. It's a real clever pun.
No, it's not.
It's not, but by my standards.
By nobody's standards is that even a pun. All right. Well, I mean, okay, Golden Sands blog post is a pun, but
blog post,
when you remove...
It's a pun on Outpost.
Yes, I got that, but I thought you were saying that the Twitter Twitter account, when you remove the post, was a pun. And that's not a pun.
No, the Twitter account is short because you can't fit that many characters in your name. I couldn't fit post. They said to me on Twitter, you can't fit post, so I didn't. So anyway, remove the post. There's no post, just like on Sundays. There's no post. Golden Sands blog, but you can get it on medium.com. You can find it, Golden Sands blog post. So anyway, that's enough plugging me. Thanks for plugging me, Hyle, but not sexually.
No, you're welcome. No, I'm saving that for the pegging episode when we do the King of Swing spotlight, obviously. So, Jeff, I guess we need to really quickly touch upon Reggie's departure. Reggie...
I've got this. I can do this really quickly. Reggie quit.
He quit, yeah. No.
Reggie retired. Reggie's retired. It's the end of an era. Do you got a lot? You want to say?
Well, he's retiring in April, so he's still there, I guess. But Reggie Fils-Aimé, Fils-Aimé, he's leaving, and he's being replaced by a guy named Doug Bowser, which jokes.
I get it. If you listen closely, you can hear him leaving.
Oh, I don't have anything to really say about this, at least not yet. I know people are probably going to be thinking, why are you doing an episode about DKU Unsolved Mysteries with Computer Kong photoshopped on Robert Stack? I came expecting an episode all about Reggie retiring. And to that I say, what would we really say about that? Well, Reggie, he sure gave us some memes, didn't he? I don't know. It's going to be weird not having him as a figure, but really, I've only known Reggie as just the guy who occasionally appears in Nintendo Directs and used to appear on the E3 stage presentations. And that's it. His departure really means nothing to me.
If you want to retrospective on him, just go back and watch a montage of his Nintendo Direct skits. Have yourself a cry, whatever. And then tune into the conversation to hear about some unsolved mysteries.
Okay.
Because we don't have time. We just don't have time.
We don't have time, and we've wasted enough time. Maybe we'll hear more about Reggie on the conversation this coming spring. But right now, we're not going to talk about it anymore. Let's talk about unsolved mysteries of the Donkey Kong universe. So, Jeff, we're going to break this up in a couple categories here. We're going to start with unresolved cliffhangers. So this is...
All right, hit me.
Yeah, this is basically just, as the title implies, cliffhangers that were never resolved because we never got a sequel. So this would be the equivalent of, remember when Captain K. Rool sailed away at the end of Donkey Kong Country 2 laughing maniacally? Imagine that was the last Donkey Kong game. That was it. And we were, what? So, two games really come to mind here, and that is Diddy Kong Racing and Grabbed by the Ghoulies. Both ended with the main villain of the piece, Whiz-Pig for Diddy Kong Racing, Baron Von Ghoul for Grabbed by the Ghoulies, returning after their defeat and either chasing our heroes or just returning to Earth, and they're both laughing, and both obviously to set up a sequel.
There's an implication.
There's an implication.
It's the implication.
There's an implication that the story is just beginning, that they're up to some chicanery, and that this bodes ill for our protagonist. Of course, we never got a sequel, a full-on sequel to either game. Although with Diddy Kong Racing, we did get Diddy Kong Racing DS, which you could make the case that it is actually takes place a decade after and is just the same story repeated, because Whiz-Pig's grand scheme that he took 10 years to formulate was just doing the exact same thing all over again. Sure.
The plan at first was, I'll do it again, but I'll give them 10 years to kind of, forget about me and lose their preparedness. And then that didn't work. So now he's thinking 20.
Yeah.
20 years. 20 years is the formula that's going to win. I'll do it again. Same thing. But they'll be so unprepared in 20 years. What's the lifespan of a mouse? What's the lifespan of a badger? I mean,
well, you could make the argument that we're past the lifespan for them, but you also have to keep in mind they're anthropomorphic mice and badgers. So because Taj the genie gifted them the ability to speak and think on a human level, I'm sure there was some lifespan boost in there as well. So, yeah.
Fair enough.
But,
You did forget one, though, Hyle.
What's that?
You forgot one unresolved cliffhanger, and that is Conker's big reunion.
Well, I'll get to Conker's big reunion in a second, Jeff. Even though it's not in my notes, I was, of course, going to mention Conker's big reunion.
Aha.
But yeah, Grab by the Ghoulies, though, obviously there was no follow-up to Grab by the Ghoulies, no need in the nuts. So Baron von, originally, the plan was for a potential sequel to Grab by the Ghoulies to take place in the nearby town, which was needed in the nuts, but then became Ghoulsville in the gloom. But it would be basically, instead of a haunted mansion, it would be a haunted, like, English village. Think Hot Fuzz meets Shaun of the Dead, I guess. But
I can't picture that at all. What a ridiculous combination.
But we never got it because Grab by the Ghoulies was a colossal flop and a punchline for many years, much to our frustration, because Grab by the Ghoulies is an amazing game, and we're going to be talking about Grab by the Ghoulies a bit more throughout the episode. But to that cliffhanger, I would argue we actually have a built-in failsafe, and that's Challenge 21. So if the events of Challenge 21, which is where you play as Amber, Cooper's girlfriend, and she takes the lead, and you basically go through the whole adventure again, if we're to take the events of Challenge 21 as canon, then what must have happened was Baron von Ghoul chased Cooper and Amber and just dragged them back to Ghoulhaven to repeat the adventure all over again. But because Chapter 21 didn't end with any cinematic scene, then that's where the story ends, right there. Baron von Ghoul is still trapped in his own statue in the courtyard of Ghoulhaven Hall. And I guess the servants, Ma Soupswill, Fiddlesworth,
Edna, or not Edna? What's he?
Barbara Buff's breast. Edna is the
Edna's the gun.
The gun, yeah,
That's
yeah.
right. It's the gun.
But they're all like feeding him like through the statue and like cleaning up after him when he like makes poopsies. But yeah, that's where Baron von Ghoul is still today, if we're to accept Challenge 21 as the canonical ending point, which we kind of have to do because there's no Grab by the Ghoulies sequel. So not an unsolved mystery if we're to use our fan logic, which I'm perfectly fine with.
Big rubber stamp. Just put the word solved on top of that one.
It'd be like on Unsolved
Solved.
Mysteries where Robert Stack would have an update. And update, they're all dead. The end.
Yeah.
But
yeah, that was the Bigfoot one, right? That was the Bigfoot episode.
Well, we found Bigfoot. He's stuffed. He's been taxidermied. It's a shame. This magnificent creature. We never got to know him.
He was a public masturbator.
I'm sure. I mean, look, Bigfoot by the nature of him living in nature, if he masturbates, it would essentially be in public because it's not like Bigfoot has his own private domicile to get busy in.
He doesn't have a treehouse.
Really, that should have been Bumper's defense. I live in the wilderness. I don't have a home. I have to do this somewhere.
I'm just a badger. I didn't ask to be sentient. I didn't ask for this life. I'm just a badger.
A genie did this to me. Can you really look? If I was just a normal badger, I can masturbate all the livelong day. But because a genie decided he was lonely and he wanted somebody to talk to, and now I'm a racing badger, it's nature versus nurture. And unfortunately, nature is winning out here. Please.
I have to nurture my nature.
Conker's Big Reunion, Jeff. Let's get to Conker's Big Reunion. So yeah, Conker's Big Reunion was going to be an episodic Conker sequel that takes place a decade after Bad Fur Day, where Conker is having a reunion with friends, but then the Teddies show up. The Teddies have reconstituted themselves through cloning, and the Teddies are back, and then his friends basically tell him to fuck off, and there's no big reunion, but then the implication is, have they been kidnapped? What's going on with Conker's friends? Who are Conker's friends, even? And it was going to be an episodic series in Project Spark. We got episode 1, and then Project Spark kind of died.
It's always it's a poison chalice to start any game project with the title Chapter 1 or Episode 1.
Yeah.
I feel like you never get the full treatment when you release it in bits like that. It always gets canceled in the middle.
It's a big dangling, I guess, plot, but it's not, Jeff. Because by the nature of what Project Spark is, because Project Spark also gave you all the assets for Conker's Big Reunion, Conker's World. Like, you had all the assets, and you're supposed to create your own game with those as well, your own adventure. So my argument, Jeff, is that even though the canonical ending to Big Reunion never came, we're supposed to pick up that baton and finish it ourselves. So basically, it's a choose-your-own-adventure ending. Conker's Big Reunion does have an ending, but it's up to the personal continuity and canon of each individual gamer.
I think that the most obvious answer, the least obtrusive, the one that requires the least imagination, is that his friends were in fact not kidnapped, and they just told him to fuck off, and he does.
It can be an installment of Conker's own journey of his rebuilding himself after the events of Bad Fur Day. He's slowly becoming a better person, and when he realizes that no, there is no nefarious plot here, they really just hate him, he can try to make amends with them, and he can try to do good deeds without any chance of reward.
The thing about that that's funny to me is the way you just wrapped it up. It makes it sound like a really meaningful moment in Conker's life. But the way I'm thinking of it is like the least eventful sequel in video game history. All right, it's 10 years later. I'm going to have a reunion. Oh, wait, they don't like me, so we're not going to have it.
Right.
End credits. That's the sequel to Conker. We're going to have a reunion, but then we just didn't.
The beauty of Big Reunion and Project Spark, though, is that it's up to you, Jeff. That can be Jeff Onan's personal Conker continuity, his personal Donkey Kong universe. That is exactly what happens, and it can't be my place to argue that. So, like, I like the notion that this weird little chapter of Conker's life ends in a myriad of ways, all depending on the user experience. But the events of episode 1 are the only bedrock canon we can go off of with future sequels.
It's like that Netflix movie. What's that Netflix movie?
Oh,
you know what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah. The one where Adam
it's
Bright.
Cumberbatch.
Oh. I was gonna say Bright, the one where not Adam Sandler, because Adam Sandler's in a bunch of other shitty. Will Smith. Obviously, I always confuse Adam Sandler and Will Smith. Will Smith.
There's no proof that Adam Sandler's not in that.
He could play the orc in
Have
Bright.
you watched it? Yeah, there's no way to know.
There's no way to know. Special Agent Ape, DK Vine moderator, aforementioned, and Conker expert, says in the live stream chat, Project Spark was my one claim to fame, and now it's gone, and I'm a soulless husk. Conker died at the end. Sorry, spoilers. I'm the Conker expert, and I would know. Your own personal continuity, Special Agent Ape, because here's the thing. We saw Conker after the events of Big Reunion. He was in hashtag IDARB, hashtag IDARB, and that's canon, so he couldn't have died at the end of Big Reunion. That's like, if he did die, then there's this whole unseen story of how he came back to life. So, do we need to make it more complicated?
He died, and then he can get away with as many lives as he can get away with, or whatever, with tails. He's got a squirrel tail, and you find him. It's this whole thing, and they don't like the cats. Cats are annoying. It's a whole thing.
He says hashtag IDARB is a prequel to Big Reunion. I don't know about that. Because DK Vine rules are, unless it specifically says, unless there is a statement about the game taking place at an earlier point in time, which is why, say, Grunny's Revenge obviously takes place between Kazooie and Tooie, or Big Reunion takes place just a decade after Bad Fur Day, and not when it actually chronologically came out, which was in 2015. Unless we have that, we have to say it takes place in the modern day.
Does Big Reunion coming out in 2015 and claiming to be a 10-year reunion, does that retroactively make Live and Reloaded the canon version of the events of Bad Fur Day?
We had this big debate back when it came out. We ultimately settled on the idea that no, it has to be 10 years to Bad Fur Day, and not Live, because Live and Reloaded we've accepted is just Conker reminiscing about the events of Bad Fur Day, but because it's
okay, it could be this. It could be that Live and Reloaded is him reminiscing about the events, and that is the last time he saw his friends or whatever. And so he did see his friends in 2005, even though he met them in 2001. And then Big Reunion does take place 10 years after Live and Reloaded. But even though he met his friends in 2001.
That's just a weird reason. That's a weird reason to have a reunion, Jeff. Oh, remember when you got all wistful about the night your girlfriend died? Let's have a reunion based from that night. That was a miserable day, Conker, when you got all mopey.
Well, that's the last time that that's the last time they went to the pub and got a drink together. And it's like, all right, well, it's been 10 years since we've seen each other. Let's have a big reunion that we won't have. And then they don't have it.
Remember when you misremember that you dressed like Van Helsing? Remember that? Remember when that forgotten Hugh Jackman movie? Remember when you thought you dressed like Hugh Jackman fighting zombies and vampires, but you really didn't? Remember that? Let's have a reunion based on that day. That's stupid, Jeff. And really, we wouldn't want...
It's not about the day. It's just about it's the last time they saw each other. It doesn't matter what happened. It's just, it happens to have been 10 years.
I don't remember...
Let's have a reunion.
So, I don't remember the last time I saw my childhood friend Elliot, so I couldn't possibly have a reunion based on that last day.
Well, anyway, I think this is an unsolved mystery that we will never solve. On account of Big Reunion's dead as heck, and, well, that's it. So let's move on and keep still being friends.
Okay. Yeah, because this could be the last day we ever talk, Jeff, if this gets any more heated.
We could have a reunion of this argument in 10 years.
Kongversation Season 17. Hyle and Jeff's Big Reunion, Episode 1. I can't wait for that one.
Mark your calendars.
All right, so let's move on to unknown in-universe lore. All right, so this is stuff that's established lore, but with a question mark after it. And we've never really gotten a concrete answer, leaving it all to fan interpretation. So, first of all, we'll start with Donkey Kong Country 3 and the mention of the Crimean War. The Crimean War, of course, is a pun, because in the game it's spelled Kremean, like Crimean, of course, referring to the real-life Crimean War with a CRI. This is Brigadier Bazooka Bear mentions he fought in the Crimean War back in the day, and we don't have any details about what the Crimean War is, but this is such a tantalizing piece of lore, of in-game history. And I get frustrated, Jeff. I'm a man who gets frustrated. My nips get a bit chapped.
Doesn't seem like you.
Oh.
Kyle, you don't seem like the frustrated type.
Believe it or not, Jeff, I get quite agitated at times, especially when it comes to lore of the Donkey Kong universe, because I don't know if you're aware of this, Jeff, but there is this jokey meme that has taken on all this life about something called the Great Ape War.
That piece of fan fiction that is not based in reality.
Right.
Yeah, I know that.
That's not based on anything in-game, but it's jokey fan fiction that people keep shoehorning onto Donkey Kong-related Wikipedias, and also gaming media sites will run this story as if it has any merit because they need to fill a certain content quota. And they're just plumb out of listicles, so here we go. Hey, here's this crazy fan theory about Donkey Kong called the Great Ape War, which has no relation or bearing to anything in the actual Donkey Kong games. Why would we ask an expert about the Donkey Kong games, like, say, the people at DK Vine? We wouldn't do that, no. Content, here you go. Blah.
You know, they should just play all the Donkey Kong games and look for a reference to it. If any person who can find a reference to the Great Ape War in a Donkey Kong game, I will give that person $1. $1, and they can use that to buy breadsticks.
Yeah, I'll mail them breadsticks, Jeff. I'll mail them all the breadsticks I can buy in one day. And you know I don't have much money because of YouTube.
Well, then you better go on Tuesday.
I don't know what the Crimean War is. I assume Crimea would refer to a place we've never been to. But obviously it's a stupid pun that the DKC3 team threw in, because the DKC3 team were really a little bit more liberal when it came to just how absurd they got compared to the Greg Mayles-led team of DKC 1 and 2. They put a lot of, like, the unused ideas that were considered too outlandish for those games, like banana birds, into this game because fuck it, right? Like, who cares? The N64 is already out.
Yeah. Because of Donkey Kong Country 3, every Donkey Kong wiki has to have an article about King K. Rool's wife.
Yeah.
Because of one throwaway joke reference.
I'm not knocking DKC 3. I love DKC 3. It gave us the Brothers Bear. It gave us so much nonsense. It's the reason Funky is perpetually dressed like a mechanic these days. DKC 3 is great. But, yeah, the Crimean War, it's just this little piece of dialogue thrown in to justify why there is a brigadier in the world of Donkey Kong. And Chad and I would always come up with, like, these fan theories about what the Crimean War was. And, of course, there's nothing here. It's not like there's any answer because, again, it was this jokey pun term that they threw in. No thought to it. But let me tell you this, Jeff. If I ever get my hands on any Donkey Kong lore officially, if I'm ever able to contribute in any way other than throwing persistent request at the creators on social media, you better believe I'm going to be throwing in more context about the Crimean War.
Yeah, you could have a character in the comic book or whatever this is. You'd be like, hey, remember the Great Ape War? And someone else would be like, no, that never happened. And then you're like, but the Crimean War, and then you just have a full page of a word bubble, an entire page describing what the Crimean War is, because that makes for good comic book reading.
It does. Nothing like a visual medium than throwing in lots and lots of text. People love it.
It's all about verbal exposition.
A lot of people would think that the Crimean War would be a war against the Kremlins, but I think my interpretation was always that, no, actually, it was a conflict on a Kremlin-owned island or Kremlin territory, but wasn't actually against the Kremlins. It might have been that the Bears and the Kongs maybe even fought alongside the Kremlins for this, because this was during an era of uneasy peace, but peace nonetheless between the Kremlins and the other races and clans of the archipelago. So, I don't know, like in my fanon, at least in my younger days, I would always imagine a Bazooka Bear fighting alongside a young Cranky and even a young K. Rool, like a teenage K. Rool. I don't know. It's stupid. It probably wouldn't work. Probably should just be against the Kremlins, but...
I like how you start off enthusiastic and then talked yourself right out of it by the end. Yeah, I don't know. It's dumb. It's stupid. I don't care. It's whatever. I don't know.
That's usually how I operate, Jeff. I get really excited about my own ideas, and then my lack of faith in myself really takes over.
You can't even last a sentence. You can't even make it to the end of a sentence.
No,
you're already
oh no, I'm actually a hack fraud. Oh God, I suck. Oh God, the bullies. The bullies in middle school were right.
Speaking of hack frauds,
yeah.
Is there a missing generation of Donkey Kong? That was a great segue.
That was maybe the best segue
I did a great
I've
job.
heard all episode long, which we haven't.
I did the exact opposite of you, Hyle, is where I said something really dumb, but by the end of it, I was just so proud and confident in it. Yeah, that was a great segue.
Luckily, I'm here to tell you that was shit. So
yeah, it was.
So yeah, this is probably the biggest mystery when it comes to the Kong family and the way the lineage works. So the question is Donkey Kong the current modern Donkey Kong who first appeared in Donkey Kong Country? Is he the grown-up Donkey Kong Jr.? Or is Donkey Kong Jr. his father, and is Donkey Kong Jr. currently missing? So basically, this is the missing generation theory, which states that Cranky and Wrinkly had a son or daughter who then sired Donkey Kong Jr., who then grew up to become Donkey Kong as we know him today, but was then raised by Cranky and Wrinkly after Cranky and Wrinkly's biological daughter or son went missing. Or Donkey Kong Jr. is their biological son, and then he went missing, but not after having a kid of his own, which then Cranky and Wrinkly raised and became the modern Donkey Kong.
So a little scaffolding for this theory, a little background. First off, it is not an unsolved mystery that Cranky Kong is the original Donkey Kong from Donkey Kong Arcade.
That is canon.
That's not a mystery. That's canon. Cranky Kong is Donkey Kong from the arcade era, right? And then second, the question is, what is his relationship to Donkey Kong of now?
Jeff, it's important.
It's important. Go ahead.
It's important. It's important to establish that even though this was prevalent in the rare era of shepherding Donkey Kong, that Cranky is the original arcade Donkey Kong, they still allude to it to this day. It's not like it's been forgotten about.
Yeah, they didn't retcon that. They didn't move on. It's still always referenced that Cranky Kong has these arcade roots. So then there's the fact that, is Cranky Kong the modern Donkey Kong's father or grandfather? And the majority of references call him his grandfather.
Yes, but there are instances, specifically Donkey Kong 64, where he refers to him as his son. And there are numerous references in the games to Cranky actually raising the modern Donkey Kong. So
you can see here how there can be this confusion of what is their relationship. And that brings us to the setup that you originally presented. So Cranky, the grandfather, does that make Donkey Kong his son that was raised by him? He's Donkey Kong Jr., or is he Donkey Kong Jr.'s son? Or is he Donkey Kong Jr., but Jr. is the grandson, and there's one in the middle that is missing? Yeah, so now I've just talked around in a circle to get right back to where we started and repeat everything you said. That's where we're at.
Thank you for that, Jeff. Thank you.
I have a valuable addition to this podcast.
Now, it's DK Vine's preferred stance, and I realize there's a lot of the fandom out there that doesn't agree with this, but it's our preferred stance that it's the cleanest, simplest, and most elegant solution to just say, yes, the modern Donkey Kong is Donkey Kong Jr. all grown up. Because there are all sorts of unfortunate implications if we're to say, no, Donkey Kong Jr. definitely had a child and then died or abandoned him to his parents to raise, and then like made off to frequent the discotheques and do the hula hoops while snorting vast amounts of cocaine.
I'll give two pieces of evidence here, real quick ones. One is there's the implication that Donkey Kong is already a video game hero by the time Donkey Kong Country comes out. And so it would make sense that he's a grown-up Donkey Kong Jr. because he's already been the star of his own video game.
Right.
Okay. Then there's also the fact that that modern Donkey Kong appears alongside Donkey Kong Jr. in Mario Tennis 64, which sounds weird. Why would that imply that they're the same character? But it actually does, because that same game has Mario appear alongside Baby Mario by way of time travel. So the question is, why would Donkey Kong... Donkey Kong would want to copy Mario and bring his own baby self into the fray, but it would make less sense for him to bring through the means of time travel the baby version of his father into a tennis tournament. That would be a weird thing to do. That would make you a little bit of a psychopath. You just go get the baby version of your father to play tennis with in a partner's game. So that would be weird, but it's not weird if it's your own baby self, because there's consent involved. Because it's you. You are giving, anyway, there's that. And I think that makes it pretty ironclad, little bit of evidence there with the tennis. So
and it's also like,
welcome.
I see all these people like demanding Donkey Kong Jr. return. And really what they're demanding is just the character design of Donkey Kong Jr. returning. This is a character who has history, but I just like the design. It's like how people fetishize certain skins of Mario characters. Like, oh yeah, I like Catsuit Peach. That's my favorite Mario character. You mean you like Peach? No, I like Peach in the catsuit. Like, oh, you like Donkey Kong Jr. Well, what if I told you that the modern Donkey Kong is probably the grown-up Donkey Kong Jr.? Well, I don't like that because I like Donkey Kong Jr. as a toddler man. Okay, well, but he grew up, just like the arcade Donkey Kong got old. Well, no, I don't like that. Bring him back as a toddler man.
I get it. I get that if you have an attachment to a character type thing, and then they are like, well, we've aged him up, and now this is what he looks like, and you're not going to like that. It's like if The Simpsons had, The Simpsons occasionally does bits that take place in the future.
Yeah.
You've got grown up Bart, grown up Lisa, and like Marge and Homer are old people. It's like if they had done that permanently, and then just from like season 12 onward or something, they all take place in the future. And then there would be people to this day who are like, man, I miss Bart when he was a little kid. And then you'd say, well, Bart is still on the show. Look at him. There he is. And they'd say, no, but I miss Bart when he was a little kid. That's the era of the show that I like, when he was on the skateboard with slingshot and the eating of shorts.
Yeah, he ate so much shorts back in the day. And I mean, to be fair, I miss my own childhood, Jeff. And I miss Kid Hyle too. I want Kid Hyle to return. I don't think it's going to happen though.
Now it makes even more sense that he would play tennis with his younger self. Because it's just a desire to relive childhood.
Yeah.
It's a desire to interact with your inner child or your younger self, but you have the means to physically do it by way of the chest of time or some other machination of time travel mechanism. So anyway, it all makes sense. Everything makes sense.
Yeah. You know, my thing is that, like, I see this all the time too, this phenomenon of wanting just an old character design to return with Tiny Kong. Because I think it's great that Tiny was aged up and hit puberty and became a teenager, and people are like, well, now is she the older sister of Dixie? I was like, no, Dixie's still older. It just Tiny went through a growth spurt, and now it's ironic that she's called Tiny, but she's actually the tallest of the Kongs. But people are like, oh, I hate that. I hate her design. Bring her back, make her a kid again. And I'm just like, well, but it's great because continuity and the progression of time, and they're like, no, we're attached to this specific image of this character. And I guess, you know, if you're just a fan of cartoons, which are never aging, always just perpetually the same, I can see that. But I'm someone who very much gets into lore and continuity and timelines, and I think it's great that the Kong's age. I mean, that's how Donkey Kong Country introduced us to these characters. As, oh, you remember the arcade game Donkey Kong? Well, now it's several years later, and Donkey Kong is an old man, and here's this new Donkey Kong. So it's been baked into the DNA from the start, and I love that. But I guess not everybody does.
I was going to say, personally, I really miss Wrinkly Kong's skin. I like, man, that was the version of character I really liked when she had all that skin, and it was, you know, it was wrinkly, the skin was. And I was like, well, man, I just wish that they still had the skin on her. Look at her now. Just nothing to her, all ephemeral.
It's a shame.
So,
it's a shame because she can't do things like exercise or hold a book anymore. And I really feel like they ruined the essence of that
two
character.
Favorite things.
Because now she just floats. Like, what?
But so, real quick, I think we got to put the big rubber stamp on Donkey Kong Jr., because we've got a very logical, very straightforward Occam's razor answer to that unsolved mystery. I'm putting the solved stamp on that. Here it is.
It's very controversial to say that's solved. As far as DK Vine stance is, it is absolutely solved, but I understand the broader consensus will still consider that an unsolved mystery. But much like Amelia Earhart, no, she crashed, but we'll just say no, she might be in a Bermuda Triangle or on the Island of Lost or whatever. It's still an unsolved mystery, sure, whatever.
It's too bad that the definition of our language means that there's nothing in between solved and unsolved. I feel like we get a stamp. It was a middle stamp, solved-ish. A solved-ish
like the
stamp.
the Mythbusters, like the equivalent to Mythbusters, plausible.
We'll get the plausible stamp. Well, the thing is, we can't hit it with the plausible stamp because we didn't order one ahead of time.
Yeah.
So we'll put that on Amazon Prime.
I can't afford it right now, Jeff, with all the breadsticks I've got to buy.
Yeah, now that YouTube isn't buying our breadsticks, what are we going to do? Next thing, on the topic of Wrinkly Kong's skin.
Yes.
That actually does kind of remind me of a whole nother mystery, which is what happened to it. What happened to her skin? I meant to say, how did Wrinkly Kong die? That's what I meant to say.
Right.
I think we know what happened to her skin. It got buried on the ground.
She might have been cremated.
For what reason is the question. The real mystery is, for what reason did she have to be buried and become a ghost, or cremated, or eaten? Maybe she was eaten. That would solve the mystery of how she died. she was eaten.
Yeah, I know it's been speculated, by and large, that Cranky Kong might have killed her.
Like on accident?
Well, our own Nick Prohl did a feature on DK Vine called "The Jinx," a play on the true crime thing, The Jinx. But that was like straight up murder. Like the fact that he could have accidentally killed her has been bandied about, and
I love that. I love that as a theory, and I'll tell you why. It's because Wrinkly Kong was just obscenely old.
Obscenely old.
She was old beyond use, and naturally, old people, they have a tendency to die, and usually the reason is nothing. And I like the fact that we have this old as shit character, old lady character, and then she dies, and the fans are like, what happened? Did somebody kill her? like there must have been foul play. Like, she was so healthy, that 98-year-old woman. Yeah, so I think that's great as a theory. It's one of my favorites. And I think that we can say very plausibly, yes, she was murdered.
Plausibly. Well, I've always leaned to, no, Cranky didn't kill her. Of course not. She was old. She just got sick. She got pneumonia or something. But, it brings to mind another classic rare character, Q, from off of GoldenEye. Desmond Llewellyn, who the very elderly man who played him in the Pierce Brosnan era. Well, he played him from the start, essentially. I believe he first appeared in From Russia with Love, or maybe it was Goldfinger, but he was there from near the start, and he played him through all the Bonds, your Lazenbys, your Moores, your Daltons, up to Brosnan. But then he died the weekend The World Is Not Enough came out, and you're like, oh, well, he was a very, very old man. How did he die? Like the actor died, not just the character, but it's like, he was a very old man. Oh, did he like have a stroke? Did he have a heart attack? Did he fall down the stairs? Oh no, he was hit by a car. Oh,
Cars, man.
Yeah,
Cars. What are you gonna do?
So
yeah, you'll have that.
I just love that. Like, oh no, how did this very old man die? Oh, vehicular homicide. Oh, okay. Oh. I mean, I don't love that he died. I just, like,
I love that, personally. Not that he died, but I love that story. I love that story about his death.
And then, of course, he was replaced by John Cleese, who played R in The World Is Not Enough. Like, they were setting up his retirement in that movie, but they didn't, like, completely write him off. Because they were like, well, he's getting very old. He might die between now and the next movie. And he did. But not for any reason that anybody could foresee. He got hit by a car.
Like literally equal chance it could have been Pierce Brosnan. Like, it could have been anybody. Yeah. It doesn't. Yeah. It very well could have just been friggin', I don't know, Halle Berry before she could be in Die Another Day.
Yeah, or Pierce Brosnan. Then Daniel Craig would have been in Die Another Day if Pierce Brosnan was hit by that car. There's a universe where that exists. And Daniel Craig. Oh my God. Daniel Craig.
Wait, Daniel Craig appears alongside the original Q in the 90s, like well ahead of. Was that even the 90s at that point? I don't remember Die Another Day. Whenever that came
World
out,
Is Not Enough came out in
early
99.
2000s.
Die Another Day came out in 2002.
Only 90 kids will. Only 90 kids. There's only 90 of them. Only they will remember.
It's true. I counted them. I counted them all. All right.
So the Wrinkly death, we got a plausible stamp on that one.
you're just stamping everything as plausible, Jeff. I think you're getting reckless with that stamp.
All right. Well, I guess technically it's unsolved, right?
Unsolved, and
we'll call that one fun solved. Because it's unsolved, but also it's funny to come up with a funny answer. So it's a fun solved mystery.
The thing is, it's not even a mystery. She was old. Like, yeah, you could like come out with a retcon that Cranky, like, I don't know, Cranky's teeth popped out of his mouth and accidentally like impaled her. But like, why would you do that? There's no reason to do that.
Well, in Donkey Kong 64, Cranky has become a potion scientist.
Potion scientist,
And
right.
that implies some character development going on. Like, is he guilty? Is he trying to work through some guilt, is some grief, and trying to use potions to bring her back to life, to let her know that he's sorry that he accidentally killed her? Maybe with a gun? There's no way to know. Donkey Kong is selling guns. Did he sell one to Cranky? And Cranky then was like trying to protect his home with it, but then in the middle of the night he heard a noise and he shot Wrinkly in the face, because it turns out that the majority of gun deaths in the home are accidents between spouses. There's no way to know. There's no way to know. And that's why it gets the fun solved mystery stamp.
Maybe Cranky gave Funky the idea to start selling guns so then he could pawn off the murder weapon with his prints on it to another Kong.
And what is Candy selling instruments for? What the fuck is she up to?
What the fuck, indeed, Jeff. So, one more piece of in-universe lore that I won't linger on too much, because we discussed it quite a bit relatively recently on the conversation when we did the character witness for this character. But Mumbo Jumbo, Jeff, what the fuck is Mumbo Jumbo? What kind of creature man is he, being all pink and scaly, but without an obvious snout?
I have the answer. He is a shaman.
Well, that's his occupation. What is he?
Oh.
What is his?
They'd give me partial credit for that. If this was a test, I'd get partial credit.
Jeff, I wouldn't say, oh, Jeff Onan. Yes, I know him. His species is pizza delivery man. I wouldn't say that because that doesn't.
But if someone said to you, what is Jeff Onan? You wouldn't say human being. You'd be like, oh, he's this man who blogs about Sea of Thieves.
I absolutely would call you a human being first and foremost, because that's the way my brain works. Because people ask me,
human being.
Running DK Vine, they ask me, well, what's Bumper? And I'm like, well, Bumper's a badger. He's an anthropomorphic badger from Timbers Island. Well, what's Jeff Onan? He's a human being.
I am an anthropomorphic human being.
He's a human being from Michigan.
I am. Thanks for telling everyone. Now they're going to come get me.
Yeah, because Michigan is such a small place.
No, I mean, they know my first name. They know my last name. They don't like my opinions about Power Rangers.
It's true. They don't.
They're gonna get me.
Luckily, you being made of breadsticks makes you like far more impervious to harm than most humans.
It means I can't. If I'm trying to escape, I can't swim across one of the Great Lakes because I'll dissolve. That's the only escape in Michigan, is to just swim across Lake Michigan and try to get to Wisconsin or Canada if I was going across Lake Huron. But the Canadians would be meeting me on the edge with their little swords. So I don't know.
This is why I prefer. Anyway. This is why I prefer living in Virginia. Whoops! I just gave away my location because we're closer. We're like we got an ocean next to us, so I can just be like.
And it doesn't matter if you're made of breadstick. That's my point. You're gonna dissolve in the ocean.
I mean, if I get a boat, though.
Oh, I forgot about boats.
Or a floating pizza box.
I forgot about boats. So I think that we could probably put the plausible stamp on Mumbo Jumbo, right?
Wait, what?
I don't remember what we said, but we've been talking for a while, so.
Sure, plausible, yeah. All right.
He's a Jinjo or a Grublin or another thing. One of those three.
He's a Kremlin who got a nose job, right?
He doesn't have a face. That's the main thing. He has no face. Whatever species doesn't have a face, that's what he is.
Let's talk about something else in the Banjo-Kazooie series. And we're going to be talking about the lingering mysteries of Stop and Swap. And yes, Jeff, I know, Stop and Swap is well-worn territory. But if we're talking about mysteries in the DKU, we would be at fault. It would be criminally liable if we did not talk about Stop and Swap. This is like talking about your favorite mythical forest-dwelling apes with big feet and not bringing up Sasquatch. You've got to do it, Jeff. You gotta do it.
All right, let's get squatchy.
It smells grassy, Jeff. It smells so grassy. So, Stop and Swap is pretty much like a closed book as far as like in-universe, whatever. Like the XBLA versions of Banjo-Kazooie and Tooie integrated a version of Stop and Swap. whatever, but that's not the original intent of Stop and Swap. What they
you're not going to give a little preamble, like one sentence. What if the audience didn't know what Stop and Swap was? You're not going to.
Oh, very well. So in Banjo-Kazooie, there were these unobtainable items, an ice key, and some question mark eggs that Mumbo shows you at the end of the game. And he says, you can't get these until Banjo-Tooie. And we're like, what? Because, so the sequel's going to come out, and then we can get these items from the original game and bring them into the sequel? How the hell does that work? Well, Jeff, it was going to work through a method called hot swapping. So basically, in early models of the N64, if you pulled out a cartridge, if you pulled out a cartridge but left the was it leaving the system on or turning it off? I don't remember what you'd have to do.
I think you left the system on, and then you swap the cartridges in. Well, I don't remember. Anyway, whatever the case, there was a method for the internal memory of the system to be able to remember some data from the last game you pulled out.
Yes. You'd have about 10 seconds. 10 seconds do this before the console would forget. So if you yanked out Banjo-Kazooie, put in Banjo-Tooie, and did it with under 10 seconds, which is actually a really long time. I know it doesn't sound like a long time, but later let's demonstrate. You do that, and then it remembers, oh, we got the eggs, or we got the ice key, and then all of a sudden that data would now be in Banjo-Tooie. So that's how you do it. It's called Stop and Swap. And the problem is, between Kazooie and Tooie's release, Nintendo released a newer model of N64 that did away with that. And it was like, oh, that's not meant to happen. We gotta seal that away. And so they didn't have their original method. Now, however, Jeff, and of course in Banjo-Tooie, they came up with a cop-out way to make good on their promise by putting the ice key and eggs in Banjo-Kazooie cartridges or behind a safe in the game. It was not as rewarding, nor was it as cool as initially promised. We did not get to go back into those areas in Kazooie and bring them into two. It was disappointing all around.
Those were weak. Those is weak breadsticks is what we call that. Weak breadsticks.
That's what you would call it. But in between the two, there's a game called Donkey Kong 64. Here's where we still have some mysteries related to Stop and Swap, Jeff. There is ample evidence that Stop and Swap would have interacted with Donkey Kong 64 as well as with Banjo-Tooie. And the thinking behind this is that initially Donkey Kong 64 was going to be for the 64DD, the 64 disk drive, the add-on to the N64 that ultimately only came out in Japan. But when the N64 came out, before it even came out, this was basically promised as this great add-on to the N64 that would give it years of life. We're going to add a disk drive to it. And I don't know why everybody, why Nintendo was hyping this up and why people bought into it. Because you look at what Sega did with all of its add-ons with the Genesis, and it was just like, this never works. This never works. But as a youngin' back then, as a 90s kid, only I understood it. But I got it. I was like, oh my god, this is going to be amazing. I actually sold my parents on the Nintendo 64 by saying, I'll never have to buy another Nintendo system again because they're just going to keep updating this one. And it was such a bullshit sales pitch, but I still had to work for my N64. I had to shovel a lot of snow that year, but they were fully on board with paying me for all this stuff for getting this N64, so I would never have to buy another video game console ever again. I suckered them pretty good, Jeff.
You gave them that initial pitch about what Stop and Swap would be like, and they were like, well, if it lives up to those expectations, then we'll buy you anything we gotta buy,
So the 64DD never came out. The Donkey Kong 64 was just cartridge based. although it did use the expansion pack because they, there's a bug in the game that they couldn't fix, and it was a whole sloppy development cycle for that game. But basically, there was a time period where Donkey Kong 64 would have interacted with Banjo-Kazooie, not with the question mark eggs, but with the ice key. They flirted heavily with the idea of making the ice key not something for Banjo-Tooie, but something you unlock in Donkey Kong 64. It's basically confirmed at this point that this was the case. And we have a little bits and pieces here and there. So in early screenshots of Donkey Kong 64, we all saw this, Jeff. This is pretty famous at this point. There was this freezer unit in Donkey Kong's Watchtower treehouse with Banjo and Kazooie's picture on it. Initially, we saw early screenshots of Banjo-Kazooie where in Banjo and Kazooie's home, there was a portrait of Donkey Kong with a render from the original Donkey Kong Country. And this was eventually replaced with a picture of Tootie before the game came out. But I'm wondering if there's any correlation with that, and I'm not the only one who wonders this, there's correlation with that picture of Donkey Kong and what eventually became the Bottles portrait in Banjo and Kazooie's home above the fireplace, where you would play those puzzles if you stare at it. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, it's above the fireplace, the Bottles portrait, and then you play those puzzles.
Right. So have you ever noticed, Jeff, that in the dialogue of that, when you activate that and Bottles is talking to Banjo and Kazooie, Kazooie refers to Bottles as Barrel Boy.
I have noticed.
Yeah.
That.
And that's not really a nickname that works with Bottles. So usually she makes fun of Bottles by referring to his nearsightedness. She calls him jam jars and goggles and Specky and basically all these names that were actually his family members. But it makes one wonder if the initial version of this was not Banjo and Kazooie talking to Bottles, but was Banjo and Kazooie talking to Donkey Kong. And yeah. And what if Donkey Kong was telling you how to get these sandcastle codes? Because that part is still applicable to Banjo-Kazooie, but the sandcastle codes you got were minor things, minor codes, eventually culminating in becoming a washing machine in Banjo-Kazooie. But what if the ultimate code you got from Donkey Kong was the code to get the ice key in Banjo-Kazooie? And what if you could then take that into Donkey Kong 64, which, oh wait, there's a freezer in Donkey Kong's home with Banjo and Kazooie's face on it. I wonder what that would keep cold. What?
So you use a key to open the thing, and then you get something.
Yeah, so you remember the lava room that's adjacent to Crystal Cave's entrance in Donkey Kong 64?
Yeah.
People have put in some code in various hacky ways, and they found this unused camera panning angle that revealed something in that area, but nothing's actually there to reveal. The thinking is that this would be where the ice key would be used, and you would unlock something in Donkey Kong 64, perhaps a whole secret world. I don't know. I know, gasp, 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 shock. But eventually this was cut, whether it's because the 64 DD was canned or for release outside of Japan, or because it just got too convoluted, but they eventually dropped any connection between 64 and Banjo-Kazooie. So what could have been, right? But the evidence exists. And it's a mystery, but we know it's a mystery that has a lot of weight to it. So plausible, stamp that with plausible, I would say so.
I'm still waiting for that one in the mail, the Amazon Prime.
Oh, sorry.
But we tentatively, I will write a little note to stamp it when I get the stamp.
Can we slap it with a breadstick and call that the breadstick of plausibility?
The breadstick of plausibility, I actually left at my dad's house.
Because your dad wanted to borrow it?
Yeah. He was stamping some other mysteries, his own stuff. I don't know. He's a plumber, so there was plumbing mysteries that needed stamping. Anyway, so we're going to tentatively, I'll write a note to stamp it with the breadstick of plausibility later. And in the meantime, I'll stamp it with this stick of gum, which I have. It is a Trident Layers. Trident Layers, strawberry plus citrus, naturally and artificially flavored. So it's not just one or the other. You get the best of both worlds.
I can't wait till that sponsorship money rolls in. Who needs YouTube, right?
Yeah. Actually, I really like when we go on these mysteries where mostly it's just you talking and like explaining the mystery, because then I'm like, literally, this is not a joke. I'm eating a Dove chocolate bar while you speak, and which is silky smooth. Silky smooth Dove chocolate. Net weight 1.44 ounces.
You're just reading the label now. Like, yeah, this.
Well, Hyle, you're not working hard enough to get that sponsorship money. You need someone like me to come in here and shill for you.
Yeah. Did you know that Angry Orchard Hard Cider, Jeff, is naturally gluten-free?
Did you know Dr. Pepper, 150 calories per serving, 0 grams total fat, 50. If you already know this, stop me anytime. 55 milligrams sodium. 40 grams of... I just gave you an out to stop me, Hyle, because it stopped being funny, but you let me do it anyway, so thanks for that.
I'm an internal optimist, Jeff, and I was hoping maybe...
I do have a question.
Yeah.
I do have a question for you. What about the whiteboard in Grabbed by the Ghoulies?
So, okay.
What about that?
Yeah. So, let's talk a little bit about Tooie and what was the plan for Stop and Swap sans Donkey Kong 64, and how that relates to the mysterious whiteboard in the classroom in Grabbed by the Ghoulies. Because at the time, a lot of us just wrote the whiteboard in Grabbed by the Ghoulies, which had the mystery of Stop and Swap on it as just a cruel joke by Rare. But in actuality, that might have told us more than we knew. I'm not making this up. So, my favorite Stop and Swap theory has actually been posited by a YouTuber by the name of Gamer Beals. Gamer, all one word, GamerBielz. So he basically puts together the whole like notion of what Stop and Swap is going to be along its multiple iterations throughout the years. Check it out. I've linked to it on the Facebook page in the past. Under the Across the DK YouTube hashtag. It's fantastic detective work, but he also uses the work of an anonymous Rare employee who supposedly posted on a message board, a French message board several years ago. But basically, it all actually makes sense when you look at code found in the games and what have you. But as far as Tooie goes, my favorite theory is that Captain Black Eye in Jolly Roger's Lagoon was actually essential to Stop and Swap in Banjo-Tooie when Stop and Swap was still going to be a thing. So he was the one who would have given you the sandcastle codes for at least the eggs. So you would have to perform a task for Captain Black Eye. And then he would reward you by giving you a new code. You would go back to Banjo-Kazooie, get the code, get the egg, and then hot swap the cartridges, so then you would then have the egg data in Banjo-Tooie. That's how it would work. Nothing grand like Banjo-Tooie sailing you back to Banjo-Kazooie on the rusty bucket, or any like nonsense we dreamt up in 2000, but still involved in the process. But what about the Ghoulies whiteboard, Jeff? Well... And by the way, I hope you're really enjoying reading that Dove wrapper while I'm talking.
I'm not just reading it, I'm eating it.
The Ghoulies whiteboard basically showed you numerous sketches of locales in Banjo-Kazooie and gave you basically your homework in 3 steps. And the homework was, number 1... collect ice key. Number 2, collect eggs. Number 3, activate secret level. Now, in the little doodles on the whiteboard, note that there are only 4 question mark eggs and not the 6 that Game Shark hackers found and that were later fully incorporated into Banjo-Kazooie XBLA. So what's the deal with that? Well, according to Gamer Beals and this alleged anonymous rare employee on a French message board, he theorized that based on the set order that the eggs appear on the total screen when you get them in Banjo-Kazooie, because they're always in a set order, regardless of whatever the order is that you collect them in. And it's weird because they're in chronological order, except for the Scion egg, the light blue one that you would get in the cellar of Mad Monster Mansion. That would always appear first, which is weird. And the yellow egg would always appear last, and that's in Nabnut's house, but chronologically that would always be the last one. So basically, the prevailing theory goes is that you are only ever supposed to get 4 question mark eggs in Banjo-Kazooie. The ones on the outside of the total screen, cyan and yellow, they were never supposed to actually be involved in the process. And this would align with what we heard around the time the Rare Witch Project broke the Sandcastle codes in the year 2001. At the time, Rare sort of warned us not to do this, even though they had no real intention of revisiting Stop and Swap at that point because it was a closed thing. But basically, the Cyan egg and the yellow egg were there to fuck up hackers who got the Sandcastle codes without doing whatever Banjo-Tooie required of you, probably assisting Captain Black-Eye. Basically, if your game data had those eggs, you would not be able to utilize the data of the other 4 eggs, the true 4 eggs. So that would explain why there were only 4 eggs on the Ghoulies whiteboard, which was the original plan for Stop and Swap either before or after Donkey Kong 64 entered and left the equation. The ice key would have unlocked a secret world that would have been accessed from the tower room of Grunty's lair, aka the transformation room where the game over sequence took place. Because there is a doodle on the whiteboard that looks like the transformation room. So you go to the tower room with the ice key, the door would be open, you'd hot swap Banjo-Tooie, and then you'd find yourself in the tower room in Banjo-Tooie. And we know that was the plan because there's code found in the game indicating that there is an area called Grunty's Lair, parentheses, tower room. Because remember, when you enter Grunty's Lair in Banjo-Tooie, it says Grunty's Lair, parentheses, entrance. But that's the only point in Grunty's Lair you can ever enter in Banjo-Tooie. The plan was, supposedly, you would be able to access the tower room by hot swapping, and that's where the secret world would be activated, and you could enter the secret world there utilizing the ice key, either before or after Donkey Kong 64 had the plans for the ice key and then abandoned them. Whew! Woo! As far as the other 4 question mark eggs, supposedly they would involve transformations. And Dragon Kazooie is the last vestige of that, which we all know was what the ice key was ultimately used for in the finished version of Banjo-Tooie. But you're going to become a Dragon Kazooie with one of the eggs and other transformations with the other 3 eggs. And eventually those were all nerfed to be what they were in the final game. So yeah.
I've never wanted my breadstick of plausibility any more than I do right now, because
when you're talking about Stop and Swap, I feel like this is the most plausible explanation for all of the Stop and Swap conundrums and mysteries and theories, because this not only incorporates all of them in a very plausible way, but it actually explains later things like the Ghoulies whiteboard to a T. Could it all be bullshit? Sure, but
it's incredibly plausible.
That breadstick has never been bigger. And I would almost think that it had been soaking in the waters of Lake Michigan just enough to get really plump.
Really plump, yeah. So anyway, stamping it with the stick of Trident Layers gum as a placeholder because we don't have the breadstick or the official rubber stamp from Amazon.prime.com.
Right.
So the Trident Layer, it's been stamped. plausible.
So speaking of eggs, Jeff, let's talk to unexplained Easter eggs and in-game curiosities.
Oh, that's a great segue.
I'm the master of the segue, right? Because I'm too lazy to walk. There are many of these throughout the Donkey Kong universe. I'm not going to be talking about all of them. I'm only going to be talking about some of my favorites and some of the most memorable ones that come to mind. Jeff, if you...
Actually, this little known fact, these are some of our favorites.
Your favorites as well.
Because that way I can feel like I'm part of it all.
Well, I was going to say, Jeff, if there's any I'm leaving out that you want to bring up, please feel free to chime in. I don't want to monopolize this conversation here.
No, I think you probably got the best ones. Let's find out what they are.
So, going back to Grab by the Ghoulies, there's a bonus book in each room that you have to find. And then, you get more bonus books, you unlock more goodies up to and including the aforementioned Chapter 21. So like part of the thing is you're in each room of Grab by the Ghoulies, you gotta find this bonus book before you leave. It's just a little kind of design philosophy that the Ghoulies team, which of course was the Banjo team, which of course was the initial 2 Donkey Kong Country games team, they like their stuff like this. The bonus book was essentially the hero coin of Grab by the Ghoulies. But there were 11 unobtainable bonus books in Grab by the Ghoulies, and this really upsets the OCD completionist in me. Years before Rare and the Sea of Thieves teams would be upsetting my OCD completionist by introducing all of these cosmetics that wouldn't be available to the likes of me. But there would be like the banana flag and the rare employee flag. But these 11 unobtainable bonus books were found in the upper corridors behind metal bars, but they were laid out in the shape of a question mark. A question mark, Jeff, leading you to believe that there's a way you could collect these. Yeah, the implication was, there's 11 bonus books all right here for the taking. How do you get them, though? It's never been resolved. As far as we can tell, the best evidence is that it was just the team being colossal dicks.
There, hit that with the unsolved mystery stamp. Unsolved. Stamp. It's been stamped.
The dipping sauce of Unsolved. If we're gonna the metaphorical dipping sauce, because we don't have any breadsticks or dipping sauce to dip said breadsticks in. But if we did,
if Little Caesars wants to kick back a little kickback this way, we'll keep up this really lame bit about breadsticks in every future episode. Forever.
I'm not going to remember to do that, Joe. I have to be honest with you.
If they kick back some dough our way, some metaphorical dough, if you catch my money reference.
Wouldn't that be awesome if they just literally sent us dough, like pizza dough?
Hey, we hear you guys are big fans. We'd love for you to promote our product. And as a token of our appreciation, here is just raw dough in the mail. I think that's illegal. I think there's a law about that. It's this whole thing with the mail. There's laws in the mail. Anyway.
It's a whole thing. It's a whole thing in the mail. There's laws in the mail. Yeah.
Yeah. There's only certain things you can't put in the mail because it makes the mailman nervous. I don't know. And bread dough, raw dough would probably be. It would mess with the envelope. It would leak. I think it's this whole.
Why are you suggesting that the Little Caesars Corporation, Big Caesars or whatever they're called, would put their pizza dough in an envelope?
Well, because it's in the mail, and then when they deliver mail, it's usually on an envelope, and you get an envelope in the mail, you open it up, but what did I get? And then it's pizza dough.
How do you think the various Little Caesars restaurants get their pizza dough? It's delivered to them.
They make it out of, what's dough made out of? Wheat.
So it's not naturally gluten-free like Angry Orchard is what you're saying.
Not like my Trident Layers.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
Vegan gum. It's not vegan. If you are a vegan, don't eat Trident Layers. Sorry, Trident. I tried to, but I can't. It is sugar-free. Why
wouldn't Trident Layers be vegan? Does it have gelatin in it?
Oh, I don't know. What is gum made out of? What's gum?
Well, it's not like made out of animal teat. Like, what do you like? Gum is made from like the gummy stuff from the trees.
Oh, you know what? I just assumed it was like gelatin because it's like a gummy snack is made of gelatin, but actual gum is not. Apparently,
They do use gelatin in some gums, but that's usually based on the shell around it.
okay. So here we go. We have gum base, maltitol syrup.
Riveting podcast.
Uh, mal- hey, Hyle.
Yes.
What's another unexplained Easter egg and in-game curiosity?
So talking about Banjo-Kazooie again, talking about weird lava rooms again. The lava room of Banjo-Kazooie. And this is not so much a present day mystery as just something that taunted us for years. I could have brought it up in Stop and Swap discussion, but all indications are it never had anything to do with Stop and Swap besides fan theories. But you know the room I'm talking about, right? So it's a room in Grunny's lair that's all lava filled, and you're walking along a very narrow pathway, and eventually, like I believe there's the puzzle for Gobi's Valley in there. I think it's the entrance to Mad Monster Mansion, and then there's Cheeto up at the very end of it because you have to turn into the pumpkin to navigate the very narrow ledgeway up to Cheeto. But other than that, it's a whole bunch of empty space. There's just this huge cavern full of lava. And of course, lava is rarely seen in Banjo-Kazooie. It's seen here and it's seen in Grunny's Furnace Fun, the game show at the very end. But it's like, what is this? And we know Mount Fire Eyes was a planned world for Banjo-Kazooie. And Gobi mentions he's off to the lava world, so that really got our mind wheels a churning back in 98. So we thought this room was going to be where the secret world that we didn't even know it at Stop and Swap then, but the ice key and eggs would unearth, and maybe the entrance would rise up from this mostly empty space, and then we'd go in there and we'd see Gobi, but we couldn't access this world until the sequel came out. So fan theories were definitely cooler than what this was, which was probably nothing. It's possible that when they were still planning on having Mount Fire Eyes in the game, they designed this area to be its entrance, but then it was cut, but they left it. That's the most plausible breadstick I can whack it with. But I don't know if we've ever actually gotten an explanation for this.
Probably not.
Probably not.
I think you'd probably know if you did.
I don't know.
You'd know. I don't know.
You of Golden Sands blog posts, I feel like you are able to retain the news a lot more than I did. So if Greg Mail said this on Twitter, you would probably be up on it more than I would.
Yeah, if the Golden Sands blog post has been around for like 8 months or something.
Yeah.
He might have said it last year, and I just had blinders on. I don't know.
Well, the problem is, like, for a while there, like, the DK Vine Twitter was exclusively run by Chad, so I was never on it, and I was never on Twitter, so I missed out on a lot of the stuff, the little nuggets of wisdom that Greg or other people who made these games really spat out. So
we're going to stamp it with the plausible trident layer.
Right, exactly. The metaphorical plausible
plausible
breadstick that we don't actually have in our possession.
Right.
Yeah.
Until we can get the real plausible stamp from Amazon Prime.
So one more classic Easter egg before we move on to some newer games, and then we take some calls and wrap up this episode and find out the identity, the true name of the quote-unquote ape raper. So, Jeff, the pillar in Donkey Kong 64's creepy castle.
Yeah.
So this has basically been the source. Like, we made a joke about it way back, I believe on an April Fool's Day at the turn of the century, where we joked that this is where the scroll of gameplay would appear, which of course people thought there was a scroll of gameplay because they couldn't understand sarcasm coming from Cranky Kong in the instruction manual, and he made a joke that you'll never find a scroll of gameplay in this game. But the joke was that Donkey Kong 64 has bad gameplay because Cranky Kong hates everything, but the actual joke upon the joke is that Donkey Kong 64 did kind of have bad gameplay, but I mean, it wasn't unplayable like other bad games. It was just less than than other rare games of the era. But anyway, there's no scroll of gameplay because, of course, Cranky Kong was just shitting on the game, as he always does, or he always did back then. But people were too dense to understand that, and they thought, oh, there's a scroll of gameplay in the game. There's not. But what about the pillar, Jeff? Well, we don't know.
What about it, Hyle? You just tell me.
Oh, I was hoping you would tell me.
I actually don't know. There's apparently a pillar in Donkey Kong 64's Creepy Castle.
Yeah.
And the thing about this pillar is that it is an unexplained Easter egg or an in-game curiosity.
Way to read the document. Yeah, so it's this ornate pillar that's, I believe, in the Tiny Kong can run around, because only she can access this area, but there's nothing on it. And so people were like, well, was this supposed to be an item that was on display here? And I believe Lee Loveday said in Scribes it was originally planned for something, but that bit was cut, and so the pillar was just kind of left unadorned. And people still go on about the pillar, but it makes one wonder, was this going to relate to Stop and Swap in any way? Probably not, because I don't think there's going to be any like spooky tie-in with Stop and Swap and Donkey Kong 64. I think it was only going to be Ice Egg or Ice Key related, and having nothing to do with the mystery eggs, like maybe from Mad Monster Mansion into a Creepy Castle, and then maybe displayed on the mystery pillar. Probably not, but I don't know what the
unexplained stamp.
It might have just been a golden banana that would have appeared there, but then they changed the positions of the golden bananas, and then they left a mystery pillar behind. Just one of those things that, because keep in mind too that this pillar was in, I believe, the museum portion of Creepy Castle, so there's going to be something there, but we can just like explain it away as it's a pillar for an item that's maybe like been removed from the display. You know how museums remove items when they need to touch them up, or there's a security concern, or they're off an exhibit at another museum, or something. They remove the exhibit sometimes, and that's what happened here.
Here's a question for you, Hyle.
Yes.
Would you consider this an in-game curiosity? The yellow dinosaur from Diddy Kong Racing, is that kind of in the line with this? It's kind of like a mystery.
I mean, it's a mystery so much as that he doesn't appear in the, or he or she doesn't actually appear in the game itself. But I don't know if
not really a mystery.
It's not really a mystery. It's just like, oh, that's weird.
It is curious. It's curious.
That's weird that this dinosaur doesn't appear in any of the Dino Domain tracks. But it's curious. But it's a mystery.
So we're gonna hit the plausible stamp on that, and we'll move on.
Yeah, it's a mystery light, I thought I bought a jar of peanut butter, but I can't find a jar of peanut butter in the peanut butter bag. Oh, I bet they forgot to put it in my bag at the grocery store, and then
yeah, it's like a grocery bag. I thought you just meant that in your home you keep a peanut butter bag where you store peanut butter when you're not using it.
No. I keep my peanut butter in a cabinet where it belongs.
I keep mine in a cabin.
You just have a peanut butter cabin.
Yeah, I go out to the cabin to eat peanut butter so that no one can see me eat the peanut butter.
The shame of you just eating nothing but peanut butter.
It's in the woods. It's about 10 miles deep in the woods. And it's unmarked on any maps. There's no trail. So I get there and I just sit down. I have a spoon and I eat the peanut butter there. That's my peanut butter cabin.
That's what I need to do for Gushers. So you know the fruit snack Gushers?
Are those vegan?
They are.
Well, good.
Yeah,
because you're vegan, right?
Yeah. So Gushers, for some reason, the lizard part of my brain can't get enough of Gushers. And what you're supposed to do with Gushers is you're supposed to open a little pouch. And I'm a 35-year-old man who's admitting he loves a fruit snack designed for elementary school children. But you open the pouch and you're supposed to eat them one at a time, and they burst with this fruity burst of goo in your mouth, and it's delicious. But the thing is, I can't get enough of Gushers, so I open a pack and I stick the whole wad of Gushers in my mouth.
Oh, no.
And I eat them.
It's the wrong way to do it.
But then I'm like, I need more Gushers. So I open another pack. I can go through a 20-pack box of Gushers in under an hour. And it's still...
You're cutting back, though. You're down to a box a day. Is that right?
Yeah. But I need to have a Gushers cabin because it's a shameful way to eat Gushers. I look like a cretin when I do it, but I'm not going to give it up. I'm not going to give it up,
Your
Jeff.
Your wife walks in the kitchen. You're sitting at the kitchen table with your cheeks stuffed like a hamster and 7 empty, ripped open bags of gushers on the table.
Oh,
I can see why you would need a cabin for that.
Oh, Jeff.
I can visualize the necessity.
I just like that you think I can afford a kitchen table. Like that's a luxury that I have. Oh, look at me, the fancy man in a monocle with a kitchen table.
Oh, I'm the millionaire who eats his food at a table.
Yeah, no, we don't have a kitchen table. We have a coffee table that we eat our dinner off of, but no kitchen table.
So do we talk? Now we're going to talk about Yooka-Laylee.
Yeah, Yooka-Laylee.
I just spoiled that for the audience. Now we're going to talk about Yooka-Laylee.
We should have given a spoiler warning about what was immediately about to happen, so it could have been a surprise for the people who got there. But now it's ruined.
Yeah, generate hype. I stomped on all the hype.
You did. This is completely flaccid now. Yooka-Laylee,
like a breadstick.
Platonic's like a breadstick in Lake Michigan. So Yooka-Laylee is, of course, Platonic's one and only game thus far, but there are numerous mysteries in the game at the moment that we have no idea. This is kind of somewhat a spiritual successor to Stop and Swap, but it's also just what the fuck is happening. So there's lore, there are in-game items, and there's this in-game event. So a little bit of everything we've talked about thus far. The lore element in Yooka-Laylee that they're really playing up is how did the pirate ship that Yooka-Laylee live in, the crashed pirate ship, the batship crazy, how did that wind up in the mountains of Shipwreck Creek? And they're really like playing this up as a mystery that will be solved in a future game from Platonic. Which I love. I love that they're like doing this whole like, oh yeah, all of our output's going to be connected. And so like the answer to this question in Yooka-Laylee might be resolved in a game that's essentially completely independent of Yooka-Laylee, minus a character or two. I love that. But that's a mystery that is a purposeful mystery that we still do not know. The in-game item that we don't know what the hell is for are the pieces of pirate treasure, the little skulls that I like to say might be Order of Souls skulls.
They're bounties.
Yeah. The really like ornate ones with diamonds in their eye sockets.
Quicker picker-upper.
But there's one per world, and you collect them, but they don't appear on your total screen. There's this really ominous music that plays whenever you collect them, and that's it. And there's no indication, there's no clue, there's no hint what they're there for. And we assume they're going to be like cashed in like Stop and Swap in the future, because now you don't need to hot swap. It's just data in the cloud and whatever. But this is tantalizing. I love stuff like this. I loved Stop and Swap before Stop and Swap was ruined by the completely hype-killing way they resolved Stop and Swap in Banjo-Tooie, which I feel like was a rush job. But the fact that like Platonic is openly playing with something like this collectible they put in at essentially what was the last minute, but they're definitely like alluding that's going to be like paid off in the future at some point. We don't know how, we don't know in what game, we don't know in what capacity, but it's going to be paid off. I love it.
So what's the third one, Hyle? Is there going to be a third one?
Yeah, so Inept, the corporate security bot from the Yooka-Laylee toy box, is in Galleon Galaxy, and through various game updates, he's been counting up to some event that hasn't happened yet. So what's he counting up to? He's like up, I think he's up at 66% right now, up from 33%. We don't know what's going to happen. What's going to happen when he hits 100%, Jeff? What's going to happen?
I don't know. I don't know, Hyle. I don't know.
Like we don't have any answers for these because these are present day mysteries that haven't been abandoned. They're not just like lingering things. They're not little cute little things just like left in the game. These are mysteries with some meat still on the bone, which is not vegan, by the way. Wrinkly Kong's corpse is not vegan. So those are the current present day mysteries that Yooka-Laylee brought. But since I have the founder of Golden Sands blog post on the show with me, I thought we would talk a little bit about the Sea of Thieves mysteries. Sea of Thieves, the game that's not DKU, but will be one day. Sea of Thieves.
I like being described as the founder of the blog that consists of only me on staff.
I mean, eventually you're going to die, Jeff, and maybe your blog will be taken over by somebody else, and then therefore you'll be the founder.
Yeah, that's heavy. Sea of Thieves is like Yooka-Laylee. It is a ongoing set of mysteries. Yooka-Laylee has mysteries that are expected to be resolved either in a sequel or another game by Playtonic. Sea of Thieves is what's described as a living game, meaning that it continues to get updates that add to the lore, add to the ongoing story, add to the content of the game. And so we're not going to wait for a sequel to solve these mysteries. We're actually going to get answers to some of them or maybe all of them in the future. But also through supplementary content, they've got lore in an expanded universe of comic books and novels. So with more of that coming out in the future, we don't know when or if any of these mysteries will be solved. Some of them we do know will be solved.
Now you think they're going to be solved in the game and not a sequel, but I mean, this could all be paid off in the third game of the trilogy, Sea of Thieves. We don't know.
That's a joke.
That's how you do a pun,
yeah,
Jeff.
So that's a funny joke. It's a funny joke you made. Okay. So right now, just recently in their February update, or early February, which is this month now, they put out an update and they put in a bunch of little things around the world, little changes that some of them were immediately noticeable to players. Some of them took a little bit of time for players to notice that they made these changes. And Joe Neate, who is the executive producer on the game, just came out right out and said, these are changes to world geometry or changes to in-game objects that have been made in preparation for the big update that's coming in the first half of this year. It's referred to as the mega update. So there's things coming in that update that are going to change the gameplay of the world in ways. And in order to facilitate those changes, they wanted to change the in-game geometry now, or the in-game objects, polygons, whatever now, the shapes of things. And so they can prepare for those changes. So he said, if you notice these changes, it's directly setting up for what's coming in probably, I'm going to guess this update's coming around May.
It's not coming on March 20th, the 1-year anniversary?
No. March 20th is when they are going to unveil what the update is and when it will release. So there will be a big trailer with all the blow off the top on what is contained in this update. And this is the biggest update to date. It's going to have a lot of changes to the core gameplay, a lot of big new things to do. And so on March 20th, they're going to unveil what that is, and they're going to unveil the official release date. I know, it's confusing, because they made a big hullabaloo about announcing the date that they will announce. It's the announcement of an announcement.
It's like the trailer for a trailer. I hate that.
Yeah. Well, I hate the trailer for the trailer that plays like right in front of the trailer.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I know exactly what
trailer,
you mean.
I hate that shit. Anyway, so here's a couple of the big ones. The in-game ships that players use for... If you don't know, Sea of Thieves is a pirate game, and in the game you have a ship.
Wait, slow down. Let me. I'm not getting this.
You play as a pirate, and you have a ship. It's a pirate ship.
What's a pirate? like you need to go further back than this. Like let's just assume that our audience is just criminally stupid, like just completely, absolutely outrageously dumb, which they would have to be to listen to the conversation, right? So let's assume that, and let's just have to explain everything to them.
All right. A pirate is like a man, but with funny clothes, and they steal things.
Could be a woman.
Well, yeah. So a man is like a woman or a man in this context. So a pirate is like a man, and in this case, a man is either a woman or a man. Okay. And that man wears clothing that is silly, and then they steal things on the ocean.
Okay.
That's it.
I got
We're
the
all caught
concept
up.
now. All right, thanks.
So you're on your pirate ship. In the game, they've changed the design of the pirate ship just slightly in a couple ways. One of which is that the railing that goes along the hull, the deck of the ship, the deck on the front deck, they've put a little gap in the railing on the front. What they call the bow, on the port side of the bow and the starboard side of the bow. There's some gap in the railing that is very deliberately there, and they teased it in game by saying in the patch notes they said, that the shipwrights have changed the design of the ship that they make for you, and nobody knows why. Is it potentially to streamline the ships for better air resistance? That's the joke answer that they've given, but it's not the real answer. The real answer we don't know as yet, and what my theory is that gap in the railing is to better facilitate your pirate being able to go fishing off the side of the ship. If fishing is not yet a feature in Sea of Thieves, but it very well might become a feature when the mega update launches.
Well, yeah.
So you've got this gap in the railing you can go fishing with.
Yeah. Okay. That would make sense. Because you also have cooking pots. You also have cooking pots.
Yes, you do. That's the other big mystery. It's not a big mystery. It's a very straightforward mystery. They added cooking pots and a little stove onto all the ships, which didn't used to be there. And they currently don't have any function at all. But the implication of putting the cooking pot and the stove there is that when the mega update comes, it will have a function. And so we don't know to the extent of which cooking will be a feature, but it will be. Cooking's going to be a feature, so maybe we have to catch fish. We already have animals in the game like chickens and pigs, and we could cook them up and eat them, and that won't be vegan. But you also have bananas, and maybe other new types of fruits could be added. We have no idea the extent to which cooking, how deep they'll go with it. Will you have to create different recipes to create different potions that could give you different stat boosting, stat altering effects? We have no idea. Status effects, we have no clue. But cooking is going to happen. It's inevitable with the addition of the cooking pots. But what's a bigger mystery than any of that? What's a mystery that we have no plausible answer to is in the game, Sea of Thieves, there are these unmarked islands. There's 3 of them. So around the sea, you've got a map, and it tells you where every island is. But there's 3 locations where there are islands, and they are not marked on your map at all. And when you go there, they're special because, 1, you can never have a quest that tells you to go there. There's no quests on these islands. 2, the islands don't spawn skeletons, I don't think. I don't think they do.
I don't think they do, no.
I don't think they do. And then 3 is these islands have kind of unique architecture to them. They've got these coral reef designs that are under the sea, coral reef stuff that you don't really see these big bits of coral anywhere else in the game. They've got these giant Aztec architectural sort of arches and statues, and you don't see anything like those in the game. There are ancient ruins in the game, but none of them look like this, except for around the unmarked islands. And then also, you've got this mermaid song that plays when you swim through the caverns, because there's these underwater caverns at these unmarked islands. And the mermaid song, it doesn't play anywhere else in the game where you swim. There's just this mermaid song. So at the unmarked island, which is located at the map coordinate N13, if you go to N13 on the map, you find an unmarked island. And they've recently added some tweaky little changes to this location without telling anyone what was going on. One of which is a bunch of derelict cannons, like busted up cannon helms or whatever you want to call it, like what the cannon is mounted to, and the actual cannons themselves. A bunch of them have been added underwater where there's a sunken ship. There's this giant sunken ship there that's bigger than any other ship in the game. It's under the sea, and they added in all these derelict cannons. And why would they do that? The shipwreck has already been there all since the game came out, but the cannons are new. Secondly, if you go in the underwater cavern that you can find by swimming through the Aztec Arch, you find a cavern room that used to be completely empty, other than a little Aztec stone statue in the center. And at that statue, they once put a journal that you had to find during the Hungering Deep campaign. It was a journal belonging to Mary Merrick, the shark hunter. And now, if you go to that same cavern, the cavern is no longer completely empty. There are a bunch of wooden structures now, including a new workbench filled with little books of lore and a candle and like a little hammer. And there's all this scaffolding everywhere, scaffolding of wood that you can sort of climb on, but not really. And nobody knows what it's for. So somebody in lore, some pirate, is going to this secret cavern and building something and working on something. And presumably we will get an answer during the mega update. But we don't know.
Don't know. All right.
We don't know.
Anything else?
We don't know. There is a couple more. There are rare IP themed. This is not really a mystery. It's more of a lore mystery. Rare IP themed cave art and figureheads in the game, even though Sea of Thieves takes place in the distant past. So it's not really like a real mystery, but it's more just like a lore curiosity of like, well, why is there these tributes to Banjo and Kazooie like 500 years in the past or whatever?
Well,
they're prophetic.
Yeah,
probably.
yeah. Well, I would argue it's not actually supposed to be Banjo-Kazooie. The only one it actually might be referencing the actual character is Spinal from Killer Instinct, since Spinal was alive during this time as a Skelly. But Banjo-Kazooie would be like, I believe the description stated like it kept off sea witches or something. This combination of a bear and a Breagle. So, like you said, prophetic. And also, that would really come in handy when Black Eye shows up, because remember, Black Eye was rambling about a bear stealing his glory, and that would be a nice tie-in if the crew who messed up whatever Black Eye's up to was using that figurehead.
Yeah. So the very last mystery is one that Mike Chapman, senior designer at Rare, has mentioned in the past is one that they may reveal the answer to eventually. So that's a pretty non-committal answer there. We don't know for sure, but it is the Box of Wondrous Secrets, which is an in-game item. It is actually, and I'm embarrassed to say this as the proprietor of a Sea of Thieves blog, this is the only in-game object that I have never interacted with in Sea of Thieves. Because it's that uncommon. The Box of Wondrous Secrets is a bound box covered in these magic glowing runes that can be found somewhere in the Devil's Roar, which is a volcanic region of islands in the Sea of Thieves that used to be covered by the Devil's Shroud and recently became uncovered when a crew helmed by Captain Morrow basically wrecked their ship, the Shroudbreaker, and their charmed figurehead, which allowed them to pierce through the Devil's Shroud, it broke apart into a million pieces and spread around, and it caused the shroud to recede, revealing this volcanic region for all pirates to visit. Captain Morrow was betrayed by a member of her Forsaken Shores Alliance. That member is named Stitcher Jim. And Stitcher Jim is working for the Gold Hoarder, which is a infamous evil skeleton lord that it has an insatiable lust for gold. And when Stitcher Jim and the Forsaken Shores Alliance, when they found the Box of Wondrous Secrets, Stitcher Jim opened it just for a tiny peek. And from his perspective, he said it gave him a headache, but it made him, become obsessed with discovering what secrets it holds. And from Captain Morrow's perspective, he gave it a little peek and he went a little off the deep end, and he murdered every member of the Forsaken Shores Alliance except for Captain Morrow herself. So Captain Morrow waits on Morrow's Peak Outpost, and if you ever find the Box of Wondrous Secrets, you cannot open it, but if you take it to her, she will pay you 25,000 gold, which makes it by far the most valuable in-game item in terms of gold value. And she'll pay you that money just to keep it out of any other pirate's hand. She's taking it from anyone who can find it. She'll take it just so that Stitcher Jim never finds it. And we have no idea what's in it. We know that it contains wondrous secrets. That's the title that was coined by Stitcher Jim. And we know that he went to incredible lengths to try and get it, to bring it to the gold hoarder. And we know that Captain Morrow is going to incredible lengths to buy it off of anyone so that it never ends up in their hands. But that is a mystery that is yet to be solved.
It would be a good way to keep the breadsticks dry.
It would. That's a good one, because I'm often on the ocean wondering, well, man, my friggin' breadsticks again, because I'm sailing to my breadstick cabin, which is across the Lake Michigan.
You gotta have a breadstick cabin too, right?
Yeah,
all right.
That one's in Wisconsin.
We've got a few calls to take. So why don't we take those, and then we'll wrap this episode up and reveal the big reveal about the true identity of the crazed madman who shouts at the beginning of every Kongversation episode. All right, here we go. Let's take the first call.
G'day lads, Scrap 69 here. How's it cracking, eh? Bloody hell, I haven't called this Discord line for a while, isn't it? Hey, so I've got a question about mysteries for you. So, why is it that we've never bloody seen the Kongs get to first base with each other? Ooh.
Thanks for playing the X-Files theme there, Scraps. I'm sure YouTube will love that. What? Where are you talking? We've seen them get to first base with each other. There were 2 games they did that. The Mario Slugger series, right? They got to more than first base. They hit home runs in that game.
Mario Superstar Baseball on the Nintendo GameCube in 2005, and Mario Super Sluggers on the Nintendo Wii, which was in, I think, 2008.
We saw K. Rool.
The last appearance of K. Rool.
We saw K. Rool get to first base in that game.
He did, yeah. Yeah, and that game actually had a chemistry component of the gameplay where certain characters had good chemistry with each other, or bad chemistry with other ones. And so, there's probably some kind of romance sex joke to be made there with the first base baseball sex analogies and the chemistry system. But just because there's a joke to be made doesn't mean we're going to make it.
No.
We're going to leave that one up to you guys. We can't do it all.
We can't, no. Well, I mean, we could do it bumper style. That would be doing it all, but, self-reliance.
Bumper style.
Self-reliance.
Yeah, come on.
And then, the breadstick delivery man knocks on the door, and you're like, whoa!
Anybody order a big stick?
Oh! All right, let's cleanse the palate with this next call.
Hey, DK Vine, it's Steve from Rare Gamer, and I have a mystery here that probably 2 people care about because it involves grabs by the ghoulies. I think with mysteries like Stop and Swap and stuff, and maybe a decade from now when Greg Mails is like, might as well throw them a bone, we'll eventually solve them. But I think this one, never going to get solved just because the people involved with the mystery is probably one artist who completely forgot about it, and everybody else just doesn't care because it is grabs by the ghoulies. So here's the mystery. If you go to the servants' quarters, it's one of the later chapters in the game, I believe around chapter 3 or so, you'll find a t-shirt on the floor that says, Frankie Says. It's the only one in the game that says that, and it's really turned away from the camera, so you kind of have to go up against the wall and really rig around with the camera in order to get it pointed down at the right angle. But you'll see it says, Frankie Says. What does this allude to? As far as I can tell, because I've asked multiple team members, it's the 80s song from Frankie Goes to Hollywood called Relax. Relax, don't do it. That whole thing. It was a big controversial song back in the day. There's a whole history involved in that, rigmarole. But why is it in Grab by the Ghoulies? That is a mystery that nobody knows. It's the only one in the game, so it was purposely put in. It's not like it was, just one of the Banjo-Kazooie shirts that found its way into the other copies. It literally is the only one in the game. So that is the mystery there. Love to hear your take on it. Enjoy the show. Peace.
Thank you, Steve McCorkle from Rare Gamer. This is, I think this is pretty self-explanatory. It is, definitely a reference to the song Relax by Frankie Goes to Hollywood. They actually made these shirts, that said, Frankie Says Relax. I believe, actually, there was a joke in an episode of the sitcom Friends about it as well. I think Ross had one of these shirts. This relic from the 80s. I wouldn't know, having, been born in 83 and only, being a little baby man during the 80s, but I'm pretty sure this is the case. And I think an artist just threw that in there as maybe they owned the shirt, or, maybe it was an in-joke, but it also kind of works within the lore of Grabbed by the Ghoulies as well, though, because Baron von Ghoul, we know he, went through every, era. He was, very much in tune with the trends of the day, judging by the portraits of himself in his bedroom. And so I think, he went through a phase where he probably wore the shirt, and maybe he eventually pawned it off on the servants, or maybe they were Babs Buff Brass had washed it and it was still in the servants' room. I'm not really sure, but yeah, the song is about basically a song about not prematurely ejaculating. That is the extent of the song. So when Frankie says relax, it's like, relax, don't do it when you want to come. It's not now, it's later. It's at the end.
Hold off. Prolong.
And
take it easy.
Hold
your horses.
Ironically, if Bumper had prematurely ejaculated, he might not have gone to jail, because he would have finished up and gotten out of there before the Popo arrived. But Bumper
whether
relaxed.
or not you should take a long time, whether or not you should take a long time is proportional to how legal it is, the thing you're doing. It kind of makes sense in a metatextual sense of, the context of a game where you're in a haunted house fighting all these monsters, and the game is just letting you know, hey, relax. It's going to be okay.
Yeah.
It's going to be all right. Just relax.
You don't need to ejaculate, Cooper. You don't need to do it.
Not yet. Not yet. Not till you save the prisoners in Amber, etc.
I like how Steve, very, very self-consciously tried to tap dance, sneak past the what the song was about, and we're just oh yeah, the song about coming. Yeah
he called it a rigmarole, which is a really, really excellent technique to avoid discussing controversy. It says that's a rigmarole, and then you can move on. Everyone says yes, rigmarole. He's summed it up perfectly.
Yeah. Honestly, I not noticed that shirt initially. It wasn't until, I believe, Rare Replay that it caught my eye. But yeah, relax, everyone. Don't do it. We only have one more call left, so let's take that. And then you have my permission to come.
Oh shoot! I didn't realize it was just gonna cut out like that. Okay. We never saw the Diddy Kong versus Earthworm Jim death fight. I mean, obviously he's dead in the ending of the DKC 2. I mean, come on, what could you expect? Look, his shoes are in the trash, his gun's in the trash. Obviously he died. I mean, come on, how could he not? What happened? I want to see Diddy Kong brutally rip that earthworm right out of Earthworm Jim. I cannot speak today.
Oh,
yeah. So I didn't catch your name because I feel like you tried to call in and then the hotline cut you off and you called back in. But the gist of your question was, hey, at the end of Donkey Kong Country 2, or near the end of Donkey Kong Country 2, in the Cranky's Video Game Heroes room, we saw Earthworm Jim's blaster next to the trash can that said "No Hopers," and the implication there is not that Diddy did any nefarious act against Earthworm Jim, who was at the time a beloved video game icon, one of the biggest of the mid-90s. But the implication was that Earthworm Jim and the shoes, which were there for Sonic the Hedgehog, they both attempted this challenge, and they completely washed out. So they were just put in a trash can. They were no hopers. It was just a little bit of friendly professional jabbery from Rare at these other studios, and also blatantly sucking up to Nintendo. Well, the Nintendo characters, of course, they got pretty far, but these no hopers, in the bin they go. So yeah, that was just the extent of it. There was no Diddy Kong slit Earthworm Jim's throat, or caught him in a rainstorm and had him dry up in the parking lot kind of thing. I do find it interesting, Jeff, though, that given what has transpired in the last month or so with Donkey Kong becoming an icon for trans rights, that whole thing, given the notorious transphobic comments made by the creator of Earthworm Jim, Doug Tennapol, I believe. I just find it amusing that DKC2 featured this little jab at Earthworm Jim when 24 years later, the two creative teams are kind of staked out on those positions. Interesting, right? No, man.
I also find it interesting.
It's bemusing. But,
yeah, it is.
Donkey Kong on the side of trans rights, Earthworm Jim, not Earthworm Jim the character, but you know.
Well, it's just great to see that Donkey Kong ends up on the correct side of history,
right?
Because it'd be tough. It would be tough for me if I was a fan of Earthworm Jim to be that way all the time.
Or try to rationalize
it.
Yeah, try to rationalize it away like, oh, well, Earthworm Jim, the character, doesn't feel this way.
He might be a bad guy, but his games are good, and you have to take the artist out of the art. Yeah, that's fine. But as a Donkey Kong fan, we don't even have to. We don't have anything to worry about.
Yeah,
I don't have to rationalize anything.
Actually,
except for my own mental illness.
And of course, there's another jab at Earthworm Jim through Swanky's bonus bonanza in that game, where one of the incorrect answers in the multiple choice quizzes he gave you was an ugly earthworm. I believe it was like, what was the first enemy in this level? And one of the options was an ugly earthworm. And I believe this was all spurred actually by Earthworm Jim having a code that gave Jim the head that resembled Donkey Kong, and it was just like a jab at Donkey Kong Country and its success. So then the team responded playfully in kind, but we can look at it far more brutally with the retrospective history and what transpired.
Yeah.
But
bit of a Cold War there at the time.
Yes.
Very flash in the pan, very brief.
Yes, and also Earthworm Jim. Earthworm Jim is basically forgotten about today. Not forgotten about, but he's essentially. Nobody's really demanding an Earthworm Jim revival, are they? Not really.
They're not, and it's because worms just aren't as cool as they used to be.
Yeah, I remember in the 90s.
I remember as a kid, I was a lot more interested in worms than I am now as an adult. Not really interested at all.
Something only 90s kids will really remember, but it happened.
There's only 90 kids.
Only 90 kids.
Only 90 of them.
We also have a question query from the forum from Sabretooth. Is it 1 million? I'm not going to count all those zeros, but you know who you are, Sabretooth. So this was sent to us by the forum. The Donkey Kong universe often directly addresses the passage of time and how it affects its characters. Right off the bat in DKC, we meet the original Donkey Kong, who is now an old man. Donkey Kong Jr. has grown into a young adult. The game makes no bananas about the fact that we are looking at these characters far removed from the time of their lives back in the arcades. The series continued to incorporate time-based changes in Donkey Kong 64, which tragically revealed that Wrinkly Kong had passed away of old age sometime between DK64 and Donkey Kong Land 3. And then, of course, on the other side of the corporate pond, you've got Banjo-Kazooie, who grew visibly older and chunkier in their first and only Xbox adventure, Nuts and Bolts. That's discounting, of course, hashtag IDRB and Minecraft. They and Conker both acknowledge how long it had been since their glory days whenever each of them finally got a new game on the Xbox. And that brings us to Tiny Kong, the one snarl, well, one of many, on our once airtight timeline. In Donkey Kong Racing DS, the sequel to Diddy Kong Racing, where Wizpig does the exact evil plan again, only this time without the presence of Banjo and Conker, we meet up with Tiny again, and she has blossomed into a young woman. This was a far cry from the little girl we met in DK64, and needless to say, it was jarring for many of us. Of course, this wouldn't have been an issue whatsoever, except we have not had any other instances of such a growth fire in spurts in any other character. Donkey and Diddy are the same spry guys from the SNES. Cranky isn't dead yet. Even Funky has retained his youthful energy. So what's up with Tiny? Even her own sister Dixie Kong looks just the same as she did back in her debut in DK62, sans a couple of knee pads. This was already weird enough, but I implore you, when was Tiny Kong's most recent appearance? That's right, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, when she is spiritized along with the rest of the Nintendo Plus universes. In this game, however, she appears as a child again. That's right, in Ultimate, Tiny Kong has seemingly reverted back to her adolescent form. Although we do not see her physical body, her spirit perfectly resembles the version of Tiny we met back in the days of the Blast-O-Matic. What gives, Tiny? Are you living in the past? Are you developmentally stunted from years of neglect? Well, Sabretooth, I
don't like the phrase. I don't like saying that Tiny Kong blossomed into a woman. That's a gross phrase.
She does have the flower on her shirt, though, so, you know, yeah, the imagery holds up.
Well, there's... Okay, if it's a pun, I can get behind it.
See, I was thinking of the early 90s sitcom Blossom, but again, that's only something 90 kids would remember.
I was going to say Powerpuff Girls has a character named Blossom, but Tiny Kong really more resembles Bubbles. The blonde with the pigtails. So I don't know.
I consider
only
Powerpuff Girls
will
to be
remember
early
that.
2000s along with SpongeBob. So, Sabretooth.
It is.
I would argue that the spirits in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, you know, they are taken from different points in the timeline. That's how we have a young Cranky spirit along with old Cranky. Of course, Wrinkly only appears as a ghost. Tiny's only spirit in the game is of a child. But and Kitty, of course, appears as a spirit, but as a child. But I would argue that we're not to really take that to mean their physical forms. There's two explanations here. One is that their spirit was taken from that earlier point in time. Or two, this is how they view themselves in spirit form. And maybe Tiny and Kitty both never really... they're both nostalgic for their childhood, as Jeff and I are. And we want to play tennis with our baby selves, our baby man selves. So maybe Tiny and Kitty both really long for the days when they look like that. And so that's what their spirit resembles. If you looked at my spirit, it would probably resemble 12-year-old Hyle too. So I don't really think we can take that to mean that there's been any reversion of Tiny Kong or the timeline is now screwed up completely for Donkey Kong. I wouldn't say that.
Also, the point he made about how Tiny Kong aged up in Diddy Kong Racing DS, but none of the Kongs around her aged at all, I don't think that's necessarily much of anything, because people age at different rates. People display age differently.
They blossom
for
at different
instance,
speeds.
Some people blossom earlier than others. Some girls, and then, you know, your boys in the class are going to be shorter than the girls because of blossoming.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's exactly what happened. Like people get hung up on this, but really, when you look at like how fast a kid will age versus an adult will age, you know, it's dramatic. And yeah, Tiny hit a growth spurt, but that won't affect the way Donkey or Funky looks. You know, they're going to look pretty much the same.
Yeah.
As far as Diddy and Dixie,
adult is going to look the same till they dive off that cliff of elderliness, and suddenly, within 10 years, you're Cranky Kong.
Or a ghost.
Oh, yeah. And you have no skin.
No skin.
I miss your skin.
Skinless. So, as far as Diddy and Dixie, I think this is where most people get tripped up on this. People forget that Diddy and Dixie, and Tiny, but they're all monkeys. And a monkey is not going to really get beyond a certain size compared to a gorilla, which is usually how we see the Kongs, you know, in comparison. You get the monkeys and you got the gorillas. You get other species in there, but that's usually the main two. And so, yeah, Diddy, compared to Donkey Kong, is never going to be huge. The fact that Tiny had this growth spurt and became, like, enormous, that's the joke. Like, that there is humor in there. Not great humor, because nobody's laughing at it but me. But it's still a joke. The joke is her name is Tiny, but now she's the tallest Kong. Ha ha ha. She had a...
Well, we can't ignore the fact that that Tiny took size-altering drugs throughout her Donkey Kong 64 adventure, and who knows what type of effect that had on her permanently, because she was an impressionable child. She had not yet even gone through all the hormonal changes of that are natural growth, and now Cranky Kong is pumping her full of unnatural growth potions.
The adrenal gland, Jeff.
It's the adrenal gland.
It was
everyone.
yanked. It was yanked back and forth.
Snip, snap, snip, snap, snip, snap.
Yeah, exactly like the dinner party episode of The Office. Took the words out of my mouth, and now I have no more words. So we probably should wrap up this episode.
Took me by the hands, made me a man. All right.
Final thoughts. So on
that's an unsolved
this
mystery.
Episode of Unsolved Mysteries in the DKU, it really makes me think, especially that stop and swap discussion. I remember how fun stop and swap was back when we really didn't know anything about it, and just like journeying through Banjo-Kazooie, beak bombing shit, and we need more unsolved mysteries in the DK. We need stuff put in the games like Yooka-Laylee did, but maybe never even with any intention of ever paying them off. Just a perpetual carrot being dangled above us, so to continually get us to replay these games. And they don't have to tell us that there's nothing to them. Leave us guessing. Maybe there's a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Maybe they'll mix it up. But, there's a reason, like, I really, really respect, like, the Grand Theft Auto games. And, like, they're fun sandboxes, but the amount of hidden shit and stuff that they had you chasing that had no relevance to the plot, no relevance to the notion of Grand Theft Auto or murder or mayhem, but like, the Sasquatch mysteries, or like the fact that there were UFOs in the game. It gave this sense of there's more to this than meets the eye. And as somebody who grew up in the 90s, and grew up during the whole like new agey UFO culture of the time, X-Files as Scraps played for us, like, this whole notion that there's more to this world than what we have figured out is appealing to me in both reality and video games. And I think in this era where everything is photographed or every move is traced, we can see the entire world by just typing it in and seeing the globe. And really, there's so many, like, there's not much that's hidden from us, or at least we don't think there's much hidden from us. And it's really led to this sense of sadness and this just kind of morose, gray staleness to our lives. We need mystery. We need excitement. We need the unknown. And we need that
middle layer on a stick of trident layers.
Yeah, so, and this applies to video games too. People can just look at the code now, and they've got like so much figured out. But we need something. We need to keep chasing stuff in these games. So I love when developers do this. Yeah, I realize development, cycles are tight. They have to rush a product out. Lots of money invested in video games now, but if they can find the time to sneak this stuff in, it's much appreciated. Don't ever think it's not, developers, because I know you're listening. Along with the fine people at Little Caesars.
They made it all the way to the end.
They did. Yeah. They did. And now we can finally reveal the true identity of who we have been referring to for over 6 seasons as the Ape Raper. Last time we'll ever refer to him as such. So here you go.
Or my birth name. Abe Rapier.
This has been a File 2 production.
Que rico.